Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, mashallah, welcome to all of our brothers and sisters who've joined us, and of course, who will be joining us in the in the next few hours or whatever. This stream, mashallah, is called Doubt Busters, and it's I think episode 17, if I'm not mistaken. It's for Muslims who have encountered doubts themselves, or doubts perhaps that have been presented to them, and they would like to have some information of how to deal with those particular doubts that were raised. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a doubt that you yourself have succumbed to. It can be a doubt that, as I say, somebody else has presented to you, or even a question that perhaps, you know, maybe didn't necessarily cause a deep doubt or a crisis for you, but it was nevertheless something that you really wanted to have answered because it was a bit niggly or whatever. Now, I don't want any of you to be fooled that we're doing some sort of a Hindutva stream, even though Ijaz has got orange on, because that's not the stream that we're doing. Oh, is
orange and blue?
There's a bit of blue in there. Okay, sorry, he's
no,
vindicated himself.
Yo, hold up. I just realized raising the shirt in that way might lead to other thoughts. Please close those off. Thank you.
Yes, we should not have those thoughts about Ijaz. Everybody says astaghfirullah. Thank you. Okay, he's got a bit of blue in there, so we have to excuse him for his bad taste in colors on the stream. But anyway, Doctor, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, very well, jazakallah khair. How are you doing, guys?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Brother Ijaz, mashallah, has you're frozen there, Ijaz. I don't know what's happened
there.
No,
I'm not frozen.
That was just a temporary glitch, maybe on my side. I don't know. Ijaz, how are you doing?
Let's not answer that question. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm here. Okay. I just realized we had a stream.
So, Ijaz, you know, we obviously get a lot of doubts presented to us. And, one of the doubts I remember recently that was presented to me was from a brother, basically, who wanted to get an answer that was an argument from philosophy that would prove the existence of God.
Okay.
Right. So he had read Brother Hamza Zors's book, The Divine Reality. He'd watched videos, but he said, I'm not convinced, basically, using these arguments. Yes. Philosophical arguments. Now, I had a little bit of a conversation with him, but what would you have advised? Now, the reason why I bring this up is because philosophy or philosophical arguments are often cited by people, and there tends to be a toing and froing, especially between Muslims and non-Muslims, for example, or I would say especially by, by atheists, let's say, people who are agnostic. So how would you sort of tackle that? And then I'll sort of explain what I said to him, which I think might perhaps be useful for people who might be going through similar issues. But Ijaz, what would you actually sort of say to somebody like that?
So I would start off by not categorizing it as an issue, right? The way I look at it is a lot of people understand the conclusion that we must come to true faith in Allah, but they might be interested in the different ways we can arrive at that conclusion. So one of the easiest ways is through the Qur'an, and that satisfies most people. But there are people who hold to, for example, natural theology, that you can observe the signs and the things in the universe and kind of deduce that God exists, right? So that's also a valid route. We're not saying that this is better than the Quranic route. We don't say that whatsoever, but we say it is one that leads to the Qur'an's position on Tawheed. As for those who, I don't think people should think they need to use philosophy, nor do I think we should categorize philosophy in itself as bad. People are just curious about forming arguments and looking at ways to structure them. If that's the case, and we take philosophy in that way, then I can understand a person's desire to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And just to conclude, if they do want an answer, yes, I do think that the contingency argument is one of the easiest ways to prove monotheism, or at least the existence of a creator. I do hold to the Kalam cosmological argument, though not as Dr. William Lane Craig formulates it. Some disagreements there. But yeah, I think it is one of the valid ways, and some of the ulama in their books on Aqidah have actually gone into these types of arguments. And so, yeah, if they use them and they approve of them and they've shared them over the centuries, I think that we can partake in them as well, inshallah.
Just a reminder, please, to the people who are backstage, please, if you don't mind, have your cameras on so we can identify you. We'll just quickly interact with you and then we'll get you on. So one of the things that he said, and I'll get the doctor in there as well.
Forgive me, is my audio bad? Someone is saying I need to drink
No,
water.
I think I'm the one who's coughing and clearing my throat, so they must be thinking it's you. I mean, I like the fact that they just blame you for everything, Ijaz. So me and Imran,
I know.
Me and Imran can get away with murder, basically. They just keep looking at you and saying, they just...
Well, that happened in Qatar, if you don't remember. But
that was deserved. But let's Doctor, how would you answer that question? Then I'll actually tell you why he had a contention. And then we'll get Sister Khulood on, inshallah, next, because she's waiting. But Doctor, how would you address this request for a knockout philosophical question that had no defeater, that would somehow prove the existence of God? How would you deal with that type of a question?
So I think if the person's setting himself a standard, that's probably not something that's going to be met, because it's actually the accumulation of lots and lots and lots of different positions and understanding of how the world works, and understanding human beings, and understanding the implications of being a theist or an atheist, that lead you to conclude that actually, atheism doesn't make sense. That and on a basic level. So I think if people, it's always the same. We have this in any profession, but people come to me and say, just give me that one thing that will this tablet that will cure everything that I have. And you look at the person and they're overweight and their blood pressure's high and their knees are hurting and their back, and you just think to them, if you slept a bit better, had some hydrated yourself better, ate more moderately, and did some exercise, that would be it. But people want the pill. They just give me a pill and cure my problems. And I think when you set yourself that sort of a mindset, it's very hard then to meet that sort of a requirement. So most of the things that Brother Jai is absolutely right. There's lots and lots of arguments that can be used to arrive at the conclusion that theism is the most sensible position to be in. I'm not talking about specific religions, etc. But the accumulation of all of these is just overwhelmingly, it makes it clear that this is the correct position. So if the person is saying, give me one thing, then I think that, unless you're in that person's mind knowing what that one thing would have to fit to make them accept it, I think that's a standard that we're probably not going to be able to achieve.
Now, he was a very clever young man, clearly very well read. He'd read quite a lot of stuff about, philosophy, in particular connected to the existence of God and what have you. And he came up with, well, what's to say that matter and energy or the universe itself was not just somehow eternal? And he kept insisting that he wanted this knockout philosophical, argument that would somehow completely satisfy him without any defeater. And I actually ended up saying to the brother that, look, we need to have a bit of humility here, because I said Aristotle, Plato, we've got, even in Islam, we've had Al-Ghazali, Rahmatullah, and others who have all constructed arguments for either the existence of God, and there would be maybe some in history, philosophy, who've argued against it, right? So I said, what makes you think that if throughout all of human history, all of the philosophers were not able to give one single argument that was like a checkmate move, as it were, that had no contentions or no arguments against it, or had absolutely no doubt against it whatsoever? What gives you the impression that you'd be able to suddenly comprise that argument when it's not been done throughout all of human history. And I think maybe the penny perhaps dropped a little bit, that actually, you're looking in the wrong place. I said that you've got something tangible in front of you, which is the Qur'an, that you can test. And then here you want to argue from philosophy, basically, and just use that as the only measure for reality. But I think at the end of that, I think he realized that perhaps we've got to accept our limitations and where we can actually go with arguments, and how sophisticated we might potentially be with our limitations, of course, right? Recognizing our limitations. But anyway, I don't know if that was a good answer or not, but he seemed to like it. But let's get Sister Khulood on next. Sister, I think we have verified you, so we're going to get you on next. Sister Khulood, welcome to the stream.
Jazakallah khair. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
Wa
wa
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This is really going to be super quick. I actually just wanted to say Jazakallah khair for everything that you guys have done. I've been watching pretty much everything you guys have ever put out for the last 1.5 to 2 years. And I've come on the stream myself a couple of times, but I just wanted to let you know that one of my friends who I've been giving dawah to for the last 1.5 years, alhamdulillah, has taken his shahada. And a lot of the things that I learned are because of you guys. So I just wanted to let you know that inshallah, you guys will also have a share of that reward.
Inshallah, my sister.
And that's it. That was it.
No, alhamdulillah. And I think, sister, what you do is you highlight that when we do things, we sometimes don't realize the implications of those things, whether they are good or bad. And I think, if we were to contemplate on what we do, and I'm talking to myself here first, and see perhaps sometimes the far-reaching effects that our actions can have, either in a positive context or a negative one, then we would perhaps be more careful not to do, anything that would potentially jeopardize or cause harm for people in the future. But at the same token, we perhaps be more motivated to hopefully do more in terms of dawah and good deeds. And one of the interesting things, of course, is that sometimes we don't realize and appreciate perhaps that one person coming to Islam could be a generational change right the way up to the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Out of those generations could come scholars, could come people who do great acts of charity and mashallah do lots of ibadah, worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we know, Allah is not a miser. He doesn't just stop your benefits from influencing one person or another person, but any good that comes out of that, Allah is most generous, and he keeps giving and he keeps giving. So the implications of our actions are actually very far reaching. And we're very much honored, sister, that you've spoken positively about us, and may Allah inshallah make us the way people see us. That's all I could say. Dr. Imran and Ijaz, would you like to add anything?
Sorry, I had to pop out for a second, so I didn't.
No, that's okay. All right, sister Khulood, Jazakallah khair for coming on. Was there any doubt, sister, that you've had presented or come across that perhaps you didn't receive a satisfactory answer for, or perhaps something we might be able to indulge in?
No, alhamdulillah. I'm personally good, but I did want to give a piece of advice, I guess, to the chat. The last few times that I'd been on, a lot of people have been questioning my motives, or if I knew about Islam, or all of these things. And I know you're not supposed to take the chat very literally, but just advice to the general ummah. I mean, you never know where people are coming from, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes getting these answers are the keys to, alhamdulillah, successes like this.
Yeah.
So it's just a reminder that not everybody's coming from a bad place. Think better of people.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, you know what it is, sister? We had people who were being mocked and things that were being said negatively about them when they were on live.
Mm-hmm.
But then afterwards, they sent me pictures of themselves in the mosque, mashallah, because they'd taken their shahada, because they were with Muslims, and they were thanking, mashallah, EF Dawah, and of course the other Dawah that they've received from other channels or from other people. That facilitated their journey. So as you said, we shouldn't underestimate people. We should not underestimate people, basically. and we should not also be judgmental, because it's part of somebody's journey. Sometimes people come across very with a very high level of skepticism,
Right.
but it's just their journey. They need to perhaps get through that. And sometimes, as this particular brother said to me, that he went back and he viewed the stream afterwards, and he actually realized that perhaps he was wrong in formulating the arguments that he did. And so sometimes it just takes somebody to reflect upon things later. So I think we need to be careful, and you're quite right to bring that up, that especially in the chat, guys, please be respectful. If somebody says something that's very, let's say, apparent in terms of it's something that's blatant, and you sort of answer that particular comment or whatever, it's different from just assuming that somebody's a troublemaker or they're just some sort of derogatory term. I think that's not healthy. That's not good to do. Do you want to add anything at all?
Yeah, sister, this might seem slightly odd, but do I perhaps know you from Clubhouse?
No, I live in the US.
Clubhouse is an app. There's another popular sister that there's a Khulood talks or something there.
Oh,
I thought you might be similar because I think she also uses birds, her profile picture.
maybe it's a Khulood thing to do, but no, it's not me.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
Well, Jazakallah khair. I won't take too much more of your time, but I just wanted to say keep up the good work, and inshallah, hopefully, all of your efforts are rewarded. People like us in the next generation, so to speak, are watching, and inshallah, the dawah will live on. So,
Barakallah fi, sister, and keep us in your dua, keep us in your prayers, that Allah keeps us sincere, and pray for our families as well, that inshallah from our descendants come hopefully scholars and people who are much more active, a lot more active than us in the dawah, that they make a difference, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I just want to put this comment up because we've got Matt saying, so Abbas was asked for a philosophical zinger, and after all these years in HP Corner, all he could say was, here's the Quran. It's a miraculous proof because it says it is. No, Matt, we don't say that, Matt. We actually say, look at the evidences for the Quran, assess those evidences, scrutinize those evidences if you so wish, and then come to the conclusion that this is a book of God and it's a miracle. We don't just do it blindly like I'm presuming perhaps you do. The next comment. Also, the contingency and kalam are terrible arguments and don't get you to Allah or any other God. Well, Matt, we do lots of streams where we can have this discussion. Obviously, this is not the discussion for this particular stream, but you're more than welcome to tell us why these arguments are silly, are inconsistent, or inadequate. We'll be more than happy to have that conversation with you. And since you are so confident, I'm sure you will take the opportunity when it next avails you. Dr. Imran Ijaz, would you like to deal with those comments, or should we just move on?
Move on.
Let's move on. Just a general. Someone has to straw man your position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they're already on a losing position.
Really weakness on their part.
I think we're happy to have the conversation on the appropriate stream.
Absolutely.
Wish you all the
so
best.
We've got people in the backstage. Please, if you could have your cameras on, then we will get you on first. At the moment, we don't have the cameras on, and it's difficult to have you on. We would need to see your face and identify you. So it's got to be great. Can you just give me a quick wave? Stormfire, lovely. You can turn your camera off, Stormfire, if you want to, and then we'll get you on. All right. So Stormfire, welcome to the stream. Stormfire, I hope you're not going to be a storm on our stream.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing, brothers?
Alhamdulillah. I'm going to just show my age, and I'm going to ask you, what does that, the graphics you've used, what does that mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Actually, it was a pretty old graphic when I was like 9 or years old. I just realized I still have this one.
Oh, okay.
I'm really
my
embarrassed.
apologies. I was just trying to figure out what is that thing, you know? Was it?
Is it a Pokemon?
You're even older, Abbas, because this was 10 years. This old for him, so mashallah.
Oh, subhanallah.
Is this a
This is how
Pokemon?
old I am.
Yes, it's something. I guess it's something like a Pokemon. I'm not sure
Okay,
because
man.
it was
Lovely.
a decade ago.
Mashallah. Anyway, Stormfly, let's inshallah have your question. Obviously, this stream is to do with doubts or doubts that have been presented to
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Is that what you would like to present to us today, inshallah?
Yes. Brothers, I have the question. Uh, exactly. What is the Qadr to be? Um, can you
Can you say that again,
elaborate?
brother?
What is the Qadr? The
Qadr. What is
predestiny,
Qadr? What is
the sixth,
destiny?
the sixth pillar of Islam.
Okay.
Sorry, the sixth pillar of Tawheed,
Iman. Yeah.
I
faith.
heard the Qadris, so for a second I was wondering, was he asking about the group or the belief? So thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
Qadariya, there's a specific fate to it. Let's not get into that.
Okay, let's not get
Yes.
into that.
So I have this problem because I'm not sure. When some people ask me about the Qadr, I get a bit confused because if they say that if everything is predestined, then where is the free will? And if there is free will, then how can predestiny exist and so on? So if you can elaborate, thank you, brother.
Okay, inshallah ta'ala, we will do. Ijaz, why don't you start with Qadr and how do we understand it?
Okay, Jazakallahu khairan. So basically, we believe that Allah knows everything. There is nothing which Allah does not know. Do you agree on that point, brother?
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
So
brother.
Allah is
Yes.
Al-Alim, the all-knowing. So if He knows everything, and we also believe that He is the ultimate and only creator, meaning that nothing exists or has been created except with His will, intent, and will and intent. Do you agree on that second point, brother?
Yes.
Okay, so based on those 2 points, those 2 points of belief, we then believe that everything that we do is already known by Allah. However, we ourselves aren't knowledgeable of what we will do. We are making choices and decisions in the present time. But Allah, who exists outside of time, is all knowing. He never is ignorant of what we will do. So there's a difference between Allah and us in this area. Allah has all the knowledge, and we are beginning to find out, or we only know about what is happening when we do those things or they happen to us. Does that third point make sense so far?
Yes. So far, it makes sense.
Right. So then the belief in Qadr is the initial 2 points I've mentioned, that Allah is all knowing, He doesn't lack knowledge in anything, and because He has created us, He has necessary knowledge of what is happening, has happened, and will happen to us. In terms of Qadr, we're not saying that we as humans can't make decisions or that we never know what our decisions are, but what we do say is that we don't know the future. We don't, and we ourselves make our own decisions, and Allah allows us to make those decisions. So even if Allah may know every decision that we make, we ourselves don't know. And that's where Qadr comes into place. Believe that Allah knows, but we don't know. Does that make sense, brother, so far?
Yes. So far, it makes sense.
So where is the point where you begin to disagree, or you find that you may not understand it as I do?
I guess the point where I get confused a little bit is the point where if everything is predestined, then doesn't that mean that we are bound to make that decision? So
Mhm. So what happens here is that because Allah knows does not mean He's made the decision for us. They're two separate things, right? Keep that in mind. Allah knows what decision we make. So think about it this way. This is just an example. It's as if Allah sees into the future, knowing what we can do. Do you understand? And He
I
has.
see.
Right, but there is never
So
a point where He has to actually see into the future. He just already knows. Okay?
so is it fine? Is it correct if I say it that Allah has the perfect prediction skills, Am I
Not
right
pre-
to say this?
we wouldn't say the word prediction, but we will say that Allah knows all things about all choices that we make. Because when you use the word prediction, that kind of mean that someone guesses or they gained knowledge. But Allah is never at a point where He gains knowledge.
I see. That makes sense.
Okay. The last thing is Allah does not force or compel us to make decisions, right? Allah tells us in the Quran that He is not pleased with our disbelief. Meaning, had Allah forced us to disbelieve, if Allah had forced us to commit sins, then reasonably He can't be the most just. But the fact that Allah has put us and given us life and given us the ability to make choices, it means that we are responsible for our choices, regardless of whether Allah created us, right? So understand this. Your parents, as an example, are not responsible for the choices that you make. They don't force you to eat what you eat, dress the way that you dress, do what you do, right? So, in the same way that your parents can't be responsible for your decisions, but you kind of came from your parents, similarly, Allah has created you, but He's not responsible for your decisions. He has given you that responsibility, and He will judge you based on your actions. Do you
So are you
follow?
there,
Don't follow?
Stormfire, are you there?
Yes, I
Okay.
understand.
I think one of the things, Stormfire, we've got to be very, very careful of when we're dealing with things like Qadr is that we do not overstep the mark in trying to explain something that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us when this conversation comes up. Don't go deep into it, leave it, he said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And what that means is that we will not fully comprehend or understand how Qadr works. This is very important to remember. Now,
I see.
are we responsible for our actions and are we held accountable for our actions? The answer to that is yes. Does everything happen with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yes. How do those two things fit together? It is a bit of a mystery. But however, what we can argue, what we can say, it's that with Allah's perfect attributes of justice, Allah's perfect attributes of mercy, that this concept of qadr and free will work together. But it is true, predestiny means everything happens by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But on the day of judgment, none of us will complain that Allah, you made me do this sin. I'm not responsible. None of us will be able to say that. Okay, none of us will be able to blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our shortcomings. We will blame ourselves. So we've got to be very careful not to try to unravel the entire mystery of qadr and free will, because we have to be humble when it comes to knowledge. And when the Prophet of Allah tells us don't go deep into this subject, leave it, that's exactly what we should do. And we should not be afraid to when people ask us about these things, to explain it in a simple way as I've explained it, and then say how it actually works, we don't know. Just as we don't know how the soul works, what it's made of, what it looks like, we don't know about the nature of the soul. Allah has kept this from us. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he was asked, he could not answer the question because he said, Allah has kept this from me. This information has not been given to me. When he was asked about the last day, he simply said, and what have you prepared for the last day? Because this knowledge was not given to Rasulullah as to when the last day would be, so he could inform the people. He was given signs. So we need to be careful and humble when it comes to knowledge, and we need to realize that we can't explain everything in all of its detail and all of its depth. Does that make sense, Stormfire?
Yes, thank you, Brother Abbas.
Let me just ask Dr. Imran as well if he'd like to add anything to that, inshallah.
Yeah, so I just want to maybe step back a bit from the question and actually just look on a principled basis. So first thing is that there is no this question applies to any worldview, whether you're atheist, whether you're theist, whether you're agnostic. It doesn't make a difference at all, because the concept of free will has to be explained by every single ideology, every single philosophical position. So the atheist has to explain how they're able to make free choices when everything around them is only nature exists. You know, philosophical naturalism, only nature exists. There is no supernatural, and therefore everything that is produced by in the natural world is as a result of some events, some causal events that happened to lead to that. So the reason that you're here is because of over millennia, particles have interacted according to the laws of nature, and they've produced you, and they produce your brain, and the thoughts you're having, you think you're having them, but in reality, it's just some chemicals reacting according to the laws of nature, and the effect they produce is your thoughts and your so-called choices. And you perceive that as a free will, but in reality, you have no control over them, because a sodium doesn't have any choice but to react with a potassium in a certain way, and with a chloride in a certain way, or this chemical doesn't have a choice but to react with another chemical in another way. So the outcomes are always determined by the previous set. So that's so atheists now have to explain how they're able to have free thinking, how they are able to have any ability to make choices and think. Now, if you went to people like what's that soft-spoken atheist who doesn't know very much at all, what was his name?
Sam Harris.
Sam Harris, that's the one. So this is an individual who claims that who's written a book on free will, well, a pamphlet, if you like. It's only a few short pages, and in it he admits that there's no way to map free will onto the current understanding of the world. And what he means by that is that the world is a materialist world only, and therefore everything is produced by some factors that have before some chemical reactions, and you only end up with the outcomes of those reactions. So this is literally admission that free will doesn't exist. And I'm just going to put Matt up here, and I just want to emphasize Matt is saying that free will is an illusion, and I want you to understand that Matt had no choice but to write this. Yeah. Because he doesn't have any free will. He is simply a robot that thinks that it is free. So Matt's position, his great thinking to arrive at the position of atheism, is not actually because he has any rational faculties. It's not actually because he's able to think, but he's just a robot that happens to be programmed by the laws of nature to arrive at the position of atheism. So simple as that. So there's no need to argue with robots, because robots can only do what they're programmed to do. So now why am I telling you this? Why? Because this is the atheist is in the same position of needing to explain free will and choices. Now, when it comes to the theist, we have another paradigm. We don't believe in just nature. We believe in the supernatural as well. So we believe that we are a body and we have a soul, and the soul is not interacting. Is not affected or interacting with the world of nature according to the laws of nature, because it's not of nature, it's supernatural. It's something that will live on forever after we die. For example, our bodies are dead, our soul will continue. So we have a mechanism in our system, compatibilism, if you want to call it, that allows us to make choices irrespective of the chemical reactions that are happening in our brain. Now, and I just want to put a point here. So this is High Commander, who, again, is somebody who's not able to do any free thinking. Is simply he's simply saying the answer is to stop thinking. Now, this is the atheist position. I'm sure that's where you're coming from. Now, what happens when it comes to Qadr? It's very interesting. So the Qadr is that we're trying to understand our will and Allah's will and how these two things interact. Because ultimately, and I'll read you a couple of verses from the Qur'an so that you understand. And there's a principle that I want to give you before this. So the principle is this. Allah says that, so there's a hadith, for example, from the Prophet peace be upon him, that says that the pen is lifted from three. There are three types of people who will not have even their deeds written down. They have no accountability. They're not accounted for anything. Why? You understand when you understand who the three are. So the sleeper until they waken. So the one who is asleep until they awaken. From the child until it reaches the age of understanding. and for the one who hasn't come to his rational senses, so someone who's mentally affected, mentally ill, or something like this. Now, these three people don't have the ability to make reason and rational choices. They don't have this ability, so they're not accountable. So this is the framework within which we work. The other thing is Allah says that He gives you the ability to choose the right path. And I'm going to give you a couple of verses for this. So there's a two. So 76:30, 76. I made a note of it. 76:30. Let me find that for you, and I'll read it to you, brother. So 76:30, Allah says in the Quran, He says, and this is Surah Al-Insan, which is appropriate. Surely, and it's starting from verse 29. Surely this is a reminder. So let whoever wills to take the right path to their Lord. So let whoever wills take the right path to the Lord. And the next verse then clarifies, but you cannot will unless Allah wills. God is truly all-knowing, all-wise. So what you understand is that Allah has given us the ability to make choices, and we are judged by that ability to make our choices. We are judged on this. But ultimately, everything is in Allah's control and power, and nothing can happen outside of that. Another verse I'll give you a similar, so you can understand. And this is verse 81, chapter 81, verse 29. Let me just read that for you. I'll start from verse 27. Surely this is only a reminder to the whole world, to whoever of you wills to take the straight path, but you cannot will except by the will of God, the Lord of all the worlds. Again, we have a reminder that ultimately everything is under Allah's control, and nothing can happen outside of His will. Even your ability to choose is under Allah's will, your choice. Now the question comes: how are we going to understand this interaction? This is something that is not. It's going to be outside of our ability to do that. But we have the clear framework that you are only judged according to the choices that you make. Therefore, you have choices that you make. Do you understand? And you made a conscious choice to be here, or are you just a machine that turned up here irrespective of your choice?
No, I actually made the choice.
Absolutely. And you made the choice to turn off your mute button and actually speak to me there a moment ago. So this is the whole point. The whole point here is that we have will, we have the ability to choose, but ultimately everything is under Allah's control. And Allah has predestined everything in the sense that Allah has commanded everything to happen that will happen. Because without Allah's command and the predestination, nothing would happen. I wouldn't be able to lift my arm unless Allah willed for me to be able to do that. But I'm making the choice to do that at the same time. Now, this interaction is something that is many people over 1,000 years have been trying to explain, and this is something that is not clear for us. So this is why the Prophet peace be upon him said, step away from delving deep into this, but know that you have the ability to make choices. So for example, there was a person that had passed away, and they asked about him. And remind me of that hadith, Abbas. You mentioned
the hadith is when a companion said, what's the point of doing good works when Allah has already decided on the matter? So the Prophet ﷺ said, excel and exceed in good works, and know that was your Qadr. That is your Qadr, basically. So we believe in this compatibilist form of free will and Qadr and predestiny. Yep. But yeah, Imran, one point you actually raised, which was very, very important, actually, because with the atheistic view, it puts the whole concept of jailing people for crimes and all of these things. It becomes farcical, right? And
if you read Sam Harris's book, this is exactly what he argues. There's how can you hold someone morally accountable if you're just a glorified robot that is only doing what it can only doing whatever the chemical reaction in its brains tells it to do. So it's not a so this is really the important thing to understand, that this issue of free will and choices is something that affects every single worldview. There's no doubt about it. The atheists do not have an answer to this. This is why you have people like Sam Harris who end up denying free will. I mean, he wrote a book, obviously without any choice, about free will, not having any choice but to write the book about free will, denying that free will exists, admitting that he didn't have a choice to write the book and come to the conclusions that he came to. Farcical, absolutely farcical. And then you have more sensible individuals who understand that we definitely experience choices. We make choices all the time, and therefore this must be a real phenomena. And we have an explanation for this because we believe in the supernatural, we believe in the soul, for example, and we believe in revelation, which clearly explains that you have a choice, but ultimately everything is under the control of Allah's will. So this is that position. So it's not that we are forced to make choices. You are given the free ability to make free choices, but ultimately your choices are only allowed to happen because Allah wills it. And I hope that's a reasonable explanation. So don't be defensive about this, Stormfire. When you're having this discussion, put the question back to them. How do you explain this? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because they will have to admit that they're just a robot.
Yeah, and not only that, but then you have to hold contradictory opinions, because on the one side, like Imran pointed out, many atheists don't believe there's free will. And yet they also think, no, but you have to lock up these people, some potentially for the rest of their lives. But guess what? They're not accountable in reality, because they couldn't have done it they could not have behaved in any other way other than what that first domino fell down when the universe began. That domino of them killing somebody or hurting somebody had to happen. There was no choice in the matter, right? So
there's a beautiful comment here. Sorry, brother. There's a beautiful comment here by brother Muhammad Ahmed. This is really the summary. This is what the Prophet peace be upon him summarized in that hadith. It is more constructive for everyone to focus on making the best choices instead of speculating on how choices are free or not free.
That's a very.
I really appreciate that, brother. Really succinctly summarized the whole position.
Absolutely.
Don't be worried about whether your choice is free. Make a good choice, inshallah.
Absolutely.
Jazakallah khair for that.
And it reminds me of the hadith, like I mentioned earlier, when somebody asked the Prophet about the last day, and he says, "And what have you prepared for the last day?" Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So don't go into. I find people, they want to talk about Dajjal, they want to talk about the last days, they want to talk about all these things that are going to happen, and they're almost immersed in these events that are going to take place. But as the Prophet peace be upon him said, what have you prepared for yourself? What are you doing to alleviate yourself from potential issues or problems on those days when those days finally arrive, right? And that's a more important thing. So the brother's quite right in saying, focus on being a good Muslim more, focus on doing the right thing more than the worrying about how actually this works. But Stormfire, I understand that this question was asked to you and you didn't know how to answer it. What I would advise you to do is, if you feel that we've answered it in a way that satisfies you and potentially would satisfy the person who asked you, after the stream is finished, just get a pen and paper, get a notepad, and just write it down. Write down the key points, because then that will help you, inshallah, to structure your your argument in a more cohesive way, inshallah. And I think, mashallah, everyone seems to have added some flavor to it, and I think it's very good. Stormfire, Jazakallah khair for coming on.
Yes, thank you, brothers. I would like to thank Mr. Jas for the initial explanation, and Brother Abbas, I really liked your explanation of comparing it to the explanation of the soul and the last day. That really helped
lots of
me
unseen
clear
things that we're not privy to. We don't have that information. That's very true. Yeah.
Yes, that really cleared up my mind, and thank you, Brother Imran, for explaining different perspectives and also giving the references from the Quran and Hadith. That really helped me clear my mind. Thank you, brothers.
Barakallah. Jazakallah khair, brother, for coming on. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. Wa alaikum assalam.
Allah Hafiz. Okay, we've got a few guys backstage, but if you're not Muslim, this is not a stream for you. This stream is for Muslims who have doubts or have doubts that have been presented. And so therefore we won't be able to get you on. Yoji Boji, I think you're not Muslim. Is that correct?
No.
Yeah, so this is not the stream for you, brother. You need to come onto the stream, which is for non-Muslims, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Unless you wanted to take the Shahada, which I doubt.
Unless you want to take the Shahada, Yoji Boji, then we'll, inshallah, welcome you to Islam.
No need.
Okay.
Okay.
You're
All
not.
right. You have a
Do
nice
they-
evening.
yeah.
Bye. Brother Nas, if
Well,
you could just put your camera on for me.
Can I just make an endorsement, please, if that's okay? I
course you
rarely
can.
say this, but if you've had Sprite, it's okay. If you'd had 7-Up, it's okay. But the real like bubbly soda, I gotta tell you, between those has to be Canada Dry. It's not because I live in Canada or I like the
That's so
country,
cool.
but this is the most bubbly one possible, and the ginger it like snaps. It's really nice. So
Yeah, but
if you're diabetic
probably
like
bad
me
for
and you
you.
find yourself having to do a
Dr.
stream at last
Imran is
minute
going to now
notice,
tell us. Dr. Imran is going to now tell us it's bad for your teeth and probably bad for your insides as well.
I've seen Dr. Imran drink worse.
Dr. Imran is very, very sensible. He only drinks full sugar, full fizzy drinks when we go out. I'll have you know. Anyway, please do as I say, not as I do. I'm sure is what Dr. Imran will actually say. Brother Nas, if you could put your camera on, or Servant of Allah, Lonewolf, Aliyu, if you could put your camera on and just give us a quick thumbs up. Lonewolf, give me a thumbs up for me. Lovely. Thumbs up. Excellent. I like people who listen very
That's
carefully.
usually that name is usually not a good one.
What's that?
At least not in the
Lonewolf?
modern. Yeah, it's probably not a good name in the modern context.
I don't know. Let's try. Lonewolf, welcome to the stream.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys hear me?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I had a couple of questions. If you guys would allow me to ask both of them, I will go ahead with the first one.
Not a problem. But can I ask you, are these questions about doubts within Islam, or somebody has presented a doubt?
Yeah, they are doubts basically.
Lovely. I just want to keep keep it to this stream. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I saw a guy. I saw a guy's video, and he basically said in the video that he called Muslims hypocrites because when they live in non-Muslim lands, they demand all the rights. And he mentioned, he shared a screenshot of a pact of Umar, and there it was mentioned some stuffs like prohibition of building of churches and other places of worship, and prohibition against like renovation of non-Muslim worship places. Non-Muslims cannot preach their religion and cannot display any symbols or trumpets or bells, whatever their religions allows them to do, to whatever their call of prayer is, or whatever their rituals is. And there was a point that non-Muslims cannot, like I'm literally reading from the Pact of Umar right now, there was a point like the houses of non-Muslims must not be taller than taller in elevation than houses of Muslims. So like showing like non-Muslims in Muslims land will have to live like a lower class person. Prohibition against hanging. So basically the question was that everything which was mentioned in this pact and which non-Muslims restrictions non-Muslims have in the Islamic land, he was basically telling when Muslims come to non-Muslim land, they demand all of these stuff. But when it is an ideal Islamic state, you are not allowed any of this. So when a Muslim is in a non-Muslim country, he can openly preach. He can do the
Lone Wolf, brother, you're repeating yourself. Mashallah, we get the question. We get the question. Basically, what you're saying is that there are certain texts that allude to the fact that a non-Muslim in a Muslim land has to almost live like a subservient, has to live somehow lesser than the Muslims and what have you. Now, if I remember rightly, I'll let the brothers, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is due to specific events and specific times. This is not a general. You go to any Muslim country, and you can go to any Muslim country for the last few hundred years. Why was this not the case? Why was this not practiced? Why were there Jews living in Medina who had forts? Why were there throughout history Christians and Jews who lived in Muslim lands where this was not the case. So at times of war, at times of conquest and times of difficulty, sometimes these things happen. But you know what? One thing I like to do when somebody makes this accusation against Muslims, look what the Christians did in Spain when they invaded Spain. They don't know their own history. You know, they cry about...
He was an atheist.
It doesn't matter if they was an atheist. The point is that he's talking about predominantly Christian lands that, of course, now have become liberalized and secularized. And now many people are Christian by name, but nevertheless, they do see themselves as a Christian country, right? So what did they do in Spain? They destroyed hundreds upon hundreds of mosques and they converted them to churches. They were crying recently that Erdogan once again opened I think it was the Sophia, right? Hagia Sophia for prayers. That, you know, he'd opened it up as a mosque and all of Europe were crying. The tears were flowing that, oh, this is so horrible. They've converted this church was taken over many hundreds of years ago. And now they're praying their prayers. Go to Spain, Google it now, see how many mosques that they destroyed. And see how they treated the Muslims and see how they treated the Jews. They were literally killed if they followed their religion. That's what it came to. And they ran. The Christians ran. The Jews ran. The Muslims ran. The ones that could run to North Africa, right? And you look at what they did to their properties and you look at what they did to their places of worship and what they did to their libraries. They burnt books that were piled up high. 1 million books apparently were in the libraries of Spain. This was comparable to what the British Library is today. So they have no leg to stand on. Now today, if you go to Dubai or you go to any of these Muslim countries, you go to Morocco, you go to anywhere, there's Jews living there. They can live in 10-story houses next to Muslims who have 1 story next to them, bungalows, right? There isn't this restriction. So this is dealing with a specific time, specific events, and it's not necessarily a general rule that applies to everybody for all time, basically. But Dr. Imran, if I'm wrong on that, please do correct me. Ijaz, please do correct me as well. Dr. Imran.
So what I wanted to know from Brother Lonewolf is, what's the problem?
The problem was that Brother Abbas told about that you go to any nation. So my particular point was that if an ideal Islamic state established in that conditions, these point that this guy mentioned, that a non-Muslim will not be so basically he was saying that Muslims are hypocrites, that they were not allowed non-Muslims to do in their lands, but when they come to our land,
what's the problem? I'm understanding. I want to understand I know what the claim he's making, but I'm asking you, what is the problem? Have you accepted his theory, or what's the problem for you as a Muslim? Why are you bothered by this?
Because he was calling Muslims to be hypocrites,
yes,
right?
So people call Muslims all things all the time. They call things. So the question I'm asking you is, 1 second, you're not hearing me. You have to listen to the question. What is it that bothers you about this? Have you accepted his view, and therefore now you are bothered by the hypocrisy of so-called hypocrisy of Muslims, or is there another problem? Because when people say to me, Muslims are like this, and you know, or they say, look, you look at your countries, you're all leaving there and you're coming to the West, you know, well, it doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered by that. A question I'm asking you is, what's the problem for you? Why are you bothered by this person's claims? What is it about the claim? Have you accepted his claim?
I have not accepted.
You believe what he's telling you is true, and this is, you know, the Muslims have to treat non-Muslims very badly, and you know, all of these things. And when they come to the West, they ask for these all of these rights. You think that's a problem, or what is it? What is the problem for you?
No, I mean the way presented it, and he showed the text there. So he made the case look strong. Like that's why under an ideal Islamic state, like will these things happen?
So what? So
That's
I think so. This is the problem here. So what I'm going to get you to understand maybe is something a little bit more deep than this. So you're talking about the Pact of Umar. So when Umar radiallahu anh went to Palestine, the conquest of Palestine by Umar, do you know anything about that?
Not much. Just
What happened?
no,
How did
I don't. So basically, Umar Azila went there, and there was dispute among the Christians and Jews, right? And he settled it.
No, that's not true. I'm asking you because you're
Okay.
saying things now that are inaccurate, and I want you to understand a few basic things before you go further. So, what did Umar radiallahu anh, when he went to Palestine when it was conquered? What were the events when he went? Umar radiallahu anh, what were the events?
I don't know the exact events.
So when Umar radiallahu anh went to Palestine, this is very well the very famous story, well documented. Secular historians will accept this as well. You don't have to expect my word for it, but it's good for you to understand. So when Umar radiallahu anh went to Palestine, he arrived in Medina. He was coming to Medina. He was on his camel. He had a servant who was taking turns with him to swap. So he would sometimes walk, and the servant was on the camel. And then when he was tired, they would swap, and they were doing this. When they got near to the city of Jerusalem, what happened then was it was the turn of the servant to be on the camel. And the servant said, "Actually, no. It doesn't. You're the leader. You should be the one who is going into this." so Umar radiallahu anh, what he said was, "No, it's your turn. Principle, it's your turn, so you should be riding." So when they arrive, they're coming into Jerusalem, and they have the priests and everyone there of the Christians, because there were no Jews in Jerusalem when when there were no Jews in Jerusalem. I'll come to that in a second. They went to when he arrived, the servant, the slave, was on the camel, and Umar was walking, and they shocked when they realized that we're talking to the person who is the servant. Actually, the Khalif, the leader, is the one who is walking, leading the camel. They were shocked by this. And then what happened? The archbishop or the priest of that time was taking them around the city, and they came to the church, which was the church of the in Bethlehem, where Jesus was allegedly born. And the priest said to him, "Come in, and we'll pray together." And Umar radiallahu anh, what did he say to that? Do you know what he said to that?
No.
He said, "No, I can't come in." And the priest thought maybe he was offended or something. He said, "No, if I come in, people that come after me, the Muslims, they will use this as an excuse to turn this place into a masjid, a mosque. So let us go 100 meters away, and we will pray together there." So they went and they prayed 100 meters away. That place now, 100 meters in front of where the alleged birth of Jesus is, now a masjid Umar. Yeah, exactly as Umar said. And then what happened? Jerusalem was ruled by Christians. The Jerusalem was ruled by Christians. Where were the Jews, Lonewolf?
Not in the area, I guess. I don't know.
Why were they not in the area?
Because they were deterred by the Christians.
They were killed or driven out.
Yeah,
by the
that's
Christians,
what I said.
because the Christians blamed them for killing Jesus. So they either been killed and they had been driven out. So when they went to first what happened? There were no Jews around at all in this. So Umar said, "Take me to the Temple Mount, the holy place, where the temple was, near where the Masjid Al-Aqsa was, where the Prophet went to the Miraj." He said, "Take me to this mount." And what was the mount at that time? What had it been turned into by the Christians? Do you know what it had been turned into?
No, I don't know, sir.
A dump yard, a place where they throw the trash, a place where pigs were around eating all the rubbish. This is the holy place of the Jews was turned into this.
Okay.
And they did it intentionally, just to be clear. It wasn't an accident.
Absolutely intentionally. And they did this. Why did they do this? To humiliate. They removed or killed all the Jews from the area, and they humiliated these people. So what did Umar RA do at that time? He started to get down himself and started to pick everything up. And the soldiers who were his soldiers, they saw this and they started to join him, and they cleared the area of the dirt of that area, them by hand themselves. And then Umar said, "Where are the Jews? Where are the Jews?" And the Christians said, "There are no Jews in this area. We've killed them all, or we've driven them out." So what did Umar say at that time to them? Do you know what he said to them?
No.
He said he sent one of his commanders, get 50 Jewish families and bring them back into this area. There cannot be you cannot have Jerusalem without Jews.
Okay.
And he brought the Jewish families back into Jerusalem. This is now Muslim rule we're talking about. Do you understand?
Okay.
Do you understand? So this is the same Umar who's saying these things.
Okay.
Now I'm just giving you a little snapshot. I'm giving you a little snapshot of the history of the Muslims, and I want you to understand that the picture that someone is painting to you is not an accurate picture. Okay, so I'll give you another example. In Islam, the Christians are in a Muslim country. The Christians are allowed to rule by Christian laws themselves. The Jews are allowed to rule by Jewish laws themselves. Do you understand? They are allowed to keep alcohol. The Christians are allowed to keep alcohol. The Jews are allowed to keep alcohol in their areas themselves. The Christians are allowed to keep pigs in their own areas themselves. So we have true multiculturalism, if you like. People are allowed to have parallel law systems of their own within the organization, within the overarching system that we have. You go to any country, what do you hear? One law for all. One law for all, isn't it? You hear this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what the problem with one law for all is? It's not just. So you're Muslim or you're Hindu? Sorry, you're Muslim, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. If I had two friends, one is a diabetic and one is not a diabetic, and I say, in my house there's one rule for everyone. I'm making you tea. Everyone has 2 sugars. You have no choice. This is the law of this house. Now, I'm being fair because everyone is getting the same, but am I being just, Lone Wolf?
So different. I would like to say on this that different countries can have a different.
First, deal with my example, and we'll come to the countries. So, in the specific example, if I make everyone equal, I give them a tea with 2 sugars.
Okay.
But one person is diabetic and the other one isn't. I'm being fair, but am I being just?
To give both because one is diabetic, it's not fair, right?
No. So justice is to give people according to their need. Is to give people and so you make your systems according to the needs of the people. Do you understand? Now, if you go to France, and you go into a public building, hospital, university, you can't be covered. You can't be wearing a thobe. You can't be having your scarf, and they won't allow you in. You want to study in university, you can't wear a scarf.
They recently banned the abaya, right?
Yeah, they banned the abaya. Now I'm going to ask you: is this just?
I mean,
no. So
if the
so
girls
now
want to wear it,
then
should be allowed.
Can he answer that, Dr. Imran?
Is that just?
I mean, if the girls want to wear the abaya, they should wear it.
Yeah.
Is it just?
What is just?
Is the law they have in France just?
No, not really.
No. Okay. So now we understand so this is really about justice. And what I wanted to do was to step back and give you some of the overall picture, so you understand the reality of how the Muslims interact with people. If you looked at Islamic history in depth, you'll see that the justice system was amazing. And if you look at a lot of the Western ideas, so for example, I'm going to go too deep into different things, so I'm going to keep it simple. But the point I wanted to make to you was that you're being given a picture of Islam which doesn't fit with the reality of Islam. Okay.
And you know what, Dr. Imran, one last quickly thing to add in there is that even if you look at the works of Karen Armstrong, the British ex-nun, who writes extensively about the history of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, you know, she says clearly in her books that there's an absolute chalk and cheese difference between the way the Christian crusaders behaved and the way that the Muslim armies behaved. Literally chalk and cheese. Now, the woman is not Muslim. She's an ex-nun, perhaps agnostic or whatever now, right? But or she may believe in God, I don't know, but she doesn't conform to any religion, for the best of my knowledge. And she says that the experiences of throughout history of the way that the Crusaders behaved and the way that Muslims behaved, the difference is chalk and cheese. It literally is different, completely different. A complete butchery on the one side, and you know, a completely different way of interacting with those people who are conquered when it comes to the Muslim side. So I think really they've got very little to argue about. What they try to do neatly is they try to ignore all of history. They then look at they look at some aspects potentially of Islamic history, and then they apply them to the modern world when they have become completely liberalized and secularized. And in fact, they don't care. Here now in the West, you can teach about worshipping the devil. They don't care. You can encourage people to worship the devil. You're welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. They say, welcome, do whatever you like. You know, you want to organize astaghfirullah orgies, sex parties, fine, do it. Do whatever you want. Everything's free. Everything is open. You know, so when they then say to Muslims that it's okay for you to have a mosque here or to have your prayers here, they're not doing some sort of special treatment for Muslims. This special treatment is for everybody, from the devil worshipper to the worshipper of God Almighty, and every vice and every filth that you can imagine. If you want to do it, you're welcome. You're welcome to promote it. You're welcome to have your Facebook groups, and you're welcome to do all of these things and do whatever vulgarity you want to do. Everything is allowed. So they're not giving sort of special treatment to Muslims here.
Sure. So just to sort of summarize for you, because I want to. So there's a verse in the Quran which might help you, and it says, and it's on this principle: O believers, stand firm for God and bear true testimony. And do not let the hatred of a people lead you to injustice. Just be just, that is closer to righteousness, and be mindful of God. Surely God is all aware of what you do. So the point here is the principle in Islam is this: do not let the hatred of a people, even if you hate somebody, do not let the hatred of a people lead you to injustice. So the whole point here is that you have to understand the framework within which Islam works, and the Muslims have had they have been in if you remember, until literally 100 or so years ago, from all the way from China, the top of China, to into Europe, Muslims were ruling the whole middle of the world. If you look at the map, the whole middle area of the world. The oldest churches in the world before the war started, you will go to Syria and you will see them in Syria. The oldest preserved graves of Christians, if you're in the world, you want to go to them, you go and find them in Syria. If the Muslims were saying these things should be destroyed or they can't be repaired, why do you think they're still there? Why do you think they're still there?
I didn't say anything about that. Muslims destroying stuff. I mentioned the other points.
I understand. So what I'm saying to you is that don't let people give you a false narrative and accept it at all. If people, and the point that Brother Abbas is making is that the West claim to have certain standards of freedom and choice and freedom of religion. They claim these. So when the Muslims ask the people to stand by their values, this is not a demand for anything more than applying what they claim to believe in. Do you understand?
Okay.
Do you understand? Do you understand that point?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully that was useful for you.
So if I can quickly just say what I understand from that, and you guys can confirm if that is correct.
Before you do, Lone Wolf, let me see if Ijaz wants to add anything. Ijaz, do you want to add anything to that, or has it been fairly?
Yeah, no, just simply, why would it be hypocrisy? I would actually ask the non-Muslim to begin with these laws, right? They are by different people in different times, different fuqaha jurists for different reasons. So to group them all together and make the claim that one future possible Islamic nation is going to implement all of these laws is unreasonable, because they typically have to choose one of the madhahib or one methodology when it comes to Islamic jurisprudence. They don't try to do all of them at the same time for all reasons. That's simply not the case. So that dismisses the hypothetical scenario. Secondly, I would like to ask that person who made that video, and you should ask the person yourself as well, don't just tell me the West in general, name a country, right? Because the person escapes by generalizing. They're giving you two generalized scenarios: a future magical Muslim country and a magical current Western country. No, give me something realistic. I've already addressed the scenario when it comes to Islamic fiqh. Let's now address the problem when it comes to Western freedom and rights. Ask them name a country, because the moment that they have to name a country, I promise you, you'll find that there's inequality in that nation. In fact, I think it's pretty much across the board. Every single Western nation in the last year or the last 2 years since COVID has seen a rise in, I forget the word, the phrase for it. I think it's social incohesion, meaning people have become more polarized. So they don't believe as if they're getting rights or that they're experiencing true justice. As an example, if I were to take America, right, people of African American heritage were claimed that they've been massacred by the police. They don't have that. They don't have rights. They further claim that they've been marginalized from jobs. Women claim that they don't have rights in America. Ask that person to name a country. And any country you go to, they will find a problem. So don't ever allow someone to give you a hypothetical choice between two things which are not based in reality and they're generalized. Give me specifics, because even if, and inshallah, an Islamic nation will one day be a reality as we would like it to be, even if you go to the case with the Muslim majority countries, right? Today, they all implement different fiqh decisions differently. And whoever makes that claim has to accept that reality. Simple as that. Do you understand that point of criticism, Lonewolf?
Yeah.
Okay, do you find it's reasonable or unreasonable?
Yeah, sure, that's a good point.
Okay, I have one more point. I know it's long, brothers, do forgive me, but it's for the benefit of everyone. Let's assume that Muslims have more rights in the West. So what?
Okay.
What does that prove? I'll give you an example. Right? In some countries, I'm not going to name them, Northern European countries, you have the right to have a relationship with an animal. Just because that nation gives you a large amount of rights, does that make it just? Is that a just type of law, you think?
Mhm.
No.
You asked
The
me?
answer is no. If you're doubtful
No.
about that, the answer is no. No one should be doing anything like that with an animal, right?
Okay.
Following from that point, in most non-Islamic countries or non-Muslim majority countries in the West, you will find that as an immigrant, you don't have rights as a citizen. Okay, that's a funny statement, Jonas. Even if you're in the West, an immigrant does not have the same rights as a born naturalized citizen. Right? You can't run for public office in some countries if you come from a foreign nation. Depending on the neighborhood in which you live, you can't have a house of a specific size or specific length. Depending on the neighborhood you live, you may have to pay a certain amount of property tax or a different kind of tax. It all applies to different situations at different times. There is no one law across all of the land. The constitution for most countries is generalized. It's your local municipalities that have specific law. The same thing happens with the Sharia. The nation may have general laws, and specific areas might have more specified rules. So this topic and this question, this claim rather, is a lot more nuanced than the person who presented it is willing to admit. Because
Yeah.
the moment you question their imagination, the claim falls apart. Thank you, brothers.
It's a bit of a caricature. Lone Wolf, we've got the studios absolutely full. It's rammed. If you can ask your second question very quickly, and if I can ask all the panelists, including myself, well, I don't know if that's possible, to be brief, inshallah, with the answer. Lone Wolf, do you have your second question?
Yes.
I take that personally as a long-winded person.
Yeah. Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So the second question was that I've often felt that it's very easy to provoke. Do you guys agree with me on this? Because the incidents often happen. It's easy to provoke the Muslims by they do in the West. Various activities like insulting the religion. I heard a sheikh, he told a similar question was asked to him. He said that Muslims should not react to this. They should boycott these people who try to insult the religion. But in reality, when these things happen, and we see that people react, and it's as if the person who was doing this stuff, he gets a reaction out of them. Like
So ignore them, block them, forget about them. Don't give them, if you know that they want a reaction
I
from
think
you,
what he's asking,
don't give it.
Just, I think what he's asking is that when these people do, for example, abuse the Prophet or whatever, then it's better for everybody just to ignore them and not to react.
People.
And not to react, because if you're reacting, he's basically saying in a way they've won, because that's what they want. They want a reaction.
Yes.
I think potentially there's a problem with that. I think I believe that there should be a response, but I believe it should be a measured response, and it should be, of course, within the legal limits of the country that you're in, because we have to respect the law, right? But nevertheless, we profess to have freedom of speech and freedom of expression. If somebody is free to insult you or insult your religion, then I think you should have the freedom to be able to, at the very least, have a response. And of course, that response, we're not saying it should be anything that's illegal. It should be. I think often what happens, though, in the West especially, is that you'll have people like this joker, Robert Spencer, who's able to go and air horrible things about Muslims and about Islam and completely lie and misrepresent the religion. And he's been able to do this for years. And then recently in a debate with Daniel Hakikachu and our brother Jake, the metaphysician, how do we say that word? Metaphysician, right? Alhamdulillah, they completely destroyed him. But the point is that Muslims don't actually get the opportunity often and the airtime to be able to do that. But when we are given the airtime to deal with these type of Islamophobes, he completely sunk in his chair with embarrassment, because he had an abysmal response to the questions that were put to him. And I think if anyone hasn't seen that debate, I'm sure most of you have, you should definitely see that debate. It was supposed to be a discussion, but I think it ended up to be a debate, and it definitely is one to have your popcorn with you, because it was really, really entertaining, and it was enjoyable to watch people like Spencer squirm and when he was put under pressure. It was just absolutely lovely. I just had to watch it over and over again. Anyway, Dr. Imran and Ijaz, if you want to be brief and answer that, inshallah.
So maybe step back a little. So there's another dynamic here, and I want to be trying to be a little bit sort of quick with this. So in the West, one of the things that when people who do these things, whether it's Quran burning or whether it's drawing of the Prophet peace, whatever they want to do to try and offend the Muslims. There is a background to this, and often one of the things that people claim is this is we're trying to we're exercising our freedom of speech. Yeah, this is what they say, freedom of expression. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's what they say, but they don't do this with other religions because I think they don't react to it. But
no, so that's not the reason. This is not the reason. They don't do this actually because you wouldn't be able to do it for Judaism, for example. You would be under anti-Semitism laws, and you can't do this.
There was a Muslim guy in Sweden, right? He asked for permission from the Swedish authorities to burn the Torah, right? And he got the authority, but later he said that I am not going to do this because my religion does not allow.
So what you're giving the exception that proves the rule. So so prior to that, the same people had asked to do this and they had been refused. And this was the hypocrisy was very overwhelming, and so this was allowed in this specific case. But generally, if you try to do that in the UK, other places, you would be anti-Semitism, you'd be shut down. But that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making to you is the reason that they do this is not because other people don't react. No, that's not the case. People do react. When what freedom of speech? What is it? Do you know what it is?
To able to express whatever you want to, whatever you feel like, without any foundations, I guess.
No. So if somebody came up to you and started swearing at your mother to your face, they're expressing whatever they want to. This is a good part. This is a good thing to have in society.
No, not really.
No. So the freedom of speech has a specific function. It comes from somewhere. It's not that you can go up to anyone and start offending them. This is just silly. Because if someone came to you and started abusing your mother in front of you, you would react, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'd hope so, yeah? The answer is
I
yes.
could personally attest to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is freedom of speech then? So the freedom of speech was something that came about, and what it is, it's the freedom to speak against power. What does that mean? The people that would normally kill you if you spoke against them, destroy you and your family and remove you from the earth. So, for example, the rulers and the kings and the powerful people, you weren't allowed to say anything to them. And so this was something that was introduced, and I'm talking the Western. So in Islam, we've had this for a very long time. The Prophet, peace be on him, said, the true jihad is a word of truth against the tyrant ruler. This is in a nutshell. This is the Prophet 1400 years ago. But in the West, it was brought about so that you could speak against the king or the ruling powers without fear of harm to yourself. Yeah. So it was a way for the weak and the poor and the minorities to speak against the rich and the powerful. Yes. Now what's happened is this is reversed. It's the rich and the powerful, the media, the majority who are harming the minority, offending the minority, and they call this free speech because it gets them out of some of the legal issues of harming a minority, and that minority is subjugated minority. And so in that scenario, and the subjugation is not new, it's been going on for 100 years or so. Let's not go into the history of that. But in that scenario, there are some people, because you've got to remember there are millions of Muslims all over the world, in the West as well. Some people react in a way that is deemed, and this is highlighted. So you have like 100,000 people, peacefully protesting, and you have the one guy who's doing cartwheels and
commit crimes.
Yeah, committing crimes, but they will. The picture will be on every single newspaper will be of the guy who was doing the crimes. Do you understand? This is perception forming. This is designed to say, look at these people. They need to be taught how to live in a country with free speech. So we're going to do more of this. Do you understand?
That's what I was saying. That they like it's a child. When you tell the child that don't react to him, the more you react to him, the parents tell him, the more you react to him, the more he will taunt you. But
that's not the case. I told you that this is deliberately being used and it's abused. Now I agree that some of the reactions maybe shouldn't be this way. But there needs to be some response, and the response needs to be much more intellectual. But there will always be somebody. So if you went to India, for example, you know that there are people, you know, who from the Hindu far right, from the Hindutva, who commit atrocities all the time against people who they claim have said something about their religion. You know, we know that the Christian churches are being burnt in India all over the place. We know that there are people being lynched on the streets in India, for example, by extremist Hindus, for example. So you know that there are people that react in ways that shouldn't be appropriate. Religions wouldn't allow.
That's what I was trying to say, but due to time was short, I skipped it because recently I saw because whenever people do this, the only thing I can compare it with is that the cow worshippers doing, like recently in Pakistan, alleged blasphemy, hundreds of Christian houses were burned down, churches were burned down.
So one second. So it's very interesting. So in India, for months they were burning of Christian churches.
That's what I'm saying. Just 2 weeks.
Lone Wolf, 1 second. It's very important.
No, that's what he's saying. That's what he's adding. That's what he's actually saying himself as well.
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago, this incident. 2 weeks ago in Gurugram, same incident happened with the Muslims.
Just hear me out, because I'm not talking about a one-off incident. There was I can't remember the state now in India. For months, it was burning. Christian churches were being burnt. Christians were being lynched, and
it was in Manipur.
For how long did that go on?
Months, maybe.
Months of a whole group of people being persecuted en masse. Any Western newspaper reported this?
Maybe the not sold out ones, very few.
No Western newspaper reported this. None. Didn't make the news. And why is this? Because of perception. So don't believe, and it's still going on. Brother Ryan is telling us Manipur, and I didn't want you to switch the example to Pakistan. I didn't want you to do that because I want you to, because you're trying to. It's almost like focusing on Muslims. This is something that happens amongst people.
I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that when we do this, we replicate when these exactly 2 weeks before in Gurugram, the cow worshippers were attacking and burning places similarly like happened to Pakistan. That's what I was saying.
But what I would say is in the this is why Islam tells us that we must not. Do not rebuke, do not revile their gods, do not say things against their gods, because they may say things against us. So we know that for a society to be a just society, you cannot go around reviling people, their religious characters and their religious figures, being rude about them, because it destroys the society. Now the West need to learn this lesson, and they will maybe come round to it eventually. May God guide them.
Alhamdulillah. Lone Wolf, Jazakallah khair for coming on, brother. I hope we've answered your question, and Jazakallah khair to Dr. Imran for being very brief and concise as well. Lone Wolf, see you soon, inshallah. Don't spit your tea out, Imran. Assalamu alaikum. Don't spit your tea out, Imran. It's called wasting.
I'm not going to say anything now.
Wasting is very, very bad. Anyway, we're going to get my favorite brother on, Brother Karl. Welcome to the stream. Brother Karl.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Brother Karl, it looks like you're descending from the heavens.
Oh, yeah, I've got a bad background, so I'll change it.
Oh, that's lovely background. I like that background very, very much.
How are you all? You good?
Alhamdulillah. How are you doing, Karl?
Yeah, good. I just come on just to ask one question, really.
Please go ahead.
It's about Dawah, so it's not really a doubt. It was just, can you just explain to me your first kind of, when you first give Dawah, like what your experience was like for you and how you found it? Because I tried to give Dawah the other day on my own, and just kind of, my nerves got the better of me and I ended up going home.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, most of us started Dawah informally. So we didn't actually say, right, we're going to start doing Dawah. It just so happened that we entered into a conversation, and then somebody asked us something and we replied. And I think for most of us, that's how we got into the Dawah. So I think sometimes when you try to push it, it can sort of overwhelm you. The other thing, Karl, is that I say initially, at least for a reasonable amount of time, possibly the first year or two or whatever, it's important to just really ground yourself. And inshallah ta'ala, if you're going to do dawah formally, then I know you've been down to Speaker's Corner a few times, come with us inshallah, or stand with the brother who's got a little bit more experience so they can mentor you. And in fact, to be fair, look, even today, I'll be honest with you, Karl, sometimes, you know, if I've got a difficult customer, you know, I'll say, Dr. Imran, why don't you come and join us? Because I know he'll get me out of a stickly, but no, I'm just joking. Yeah. But it helps, obviously, getting a different perspective, getting somebody, mashallah. And I respect a lot of the brothers, mashallah, at Speaker's Corner as well, and who are doing dawah. And I will ask them sometimes, because everyone has their little way of tackling things, and it can make a big difference. So I say, don't put yourself under a lot of pressure. Let it be something organic if it does happen initially. But for the first few months or years, depending upon your progress in terms of your learning and your ability to interact and answer those sort of questions, take it easy, take it slow, don't rush it, inshallah. Dr. Imran, would you like to add something concisely? And
I'll try. So, Assalamu alaikum, Karl. Lovely to see you again, bro. I think I started probably dawah when I was in my late teens. And what I would do is go to Speaker's Corner and just stand and watch. Just stand and watch and listen and learn. And then I would go and sort of look these things up, and I would sort of, you know, make notes. And it was helping me to sort of understand, you know, more about some of the responses to things that I had come across, and also ways of discussing. So this was before there were cameras, and before, so that the conversations had a greater level of sincerity on them, because people weren't playing up for the camera, for example. Yeah. And what you learn is, over time, there's a certain way of having the conversation and learning. And then at the earliest opportunity, I would join people who were teaching methods on how to discuss and improve your communication skills. And so over time, so really what we all are standing on the shoulders of giants. That none of us here are, we woke up and we suddenly discovered all of these. No, none of us have brought anything new. This is all standing on the shoulders of giants who have come before. So 100% agree with Brother Abbas. Get yourself stabilized, established, learn your deen, so you know that the basics are strong, and then you can help people understand those basics, because that's what really the dawah is, calling to the oneness of God. And then, but don't be in a rush. There's no race. There's no nothing like that. They will come with time, inshallah. And I think before Abbas starts to mute me, I'm going to leave it at that, inshallah.
I would never dream of doing that. Dr. Ijaz, what would you like to add to that, if anything?
When you put a label on anything, it becomes more difficult than it already is. You can talk to a co-worker, but the second it's a job performance review or an interview, things change. It could be a friend, but the second you have to do a business deal, things get, stitchy. So don't put a label on it. Make the intention to do dawah. But when you go, just go with the process of having a conversation and engaging with others. That's the easiest way in my mind. My second point would be, unfortunately, the stripes on your hoodie represent a particular pride flag. I'll just leave it there. I would do some extra research on that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, really? Oh, it's just I thought it was just a black, white, and grey hoodie.
I thought it was very smart, but
I liked it too.
I'll throw it in the bin, mate.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Because otherwise, kids would not be able to draw rainbows anymore. Or
that's it. It's like, I've got to reevaluate my whole life.
I've already banned my kids from drawing rainbows.
Anyway, Karl, before you do go,
my household
mashallah, I know that, Karl, mashallah, you've been learning Qur'an, so I want a couple of lines of Qur'an, inshallah, before you go. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, whatever you choose is fine, inshallah, with us.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? It's just like a really quick question.
You can do, Karl. Go on.
It's about Jibreel alayhi salam and Moses. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala splits the sea, and obviously Moses leads the people, Pharaoh follows in, they're swallowed in and drowned. My question is, when Jibreel alayhi salam kicks sand into Pharaoh's mouth, is that him showing free will, or does Allah already know he's going to do that? Because I've been trying to get my head around this for months, and I just can't make a comprehensive decision on what I believe.
So one of the things that we're told is that once a person sees the unseen, it's too late then anyway. So as soon as you see the angel of death, or as soon as the angel comes to you, it's finished. Time is actually over. So actually the repentance after that is not accepted anyway.
Yeah.
So that would be perhaps my answer. And since Jibreel was there and he did what he did, alayhi salam, one would have to ask, did he see effectively that, oh, now I believe? Because this is what happens. A lot of people will actually see the angel of death and they'll want to repent, and they'll want to suddenly accept that they were wrong. But at that stage it's too late. The doors of forgiveness are closed. The doors of amal are closed. So a person when they're about to die, they will ask for a few more moments. They will say, can I have a few more moments to give some more sadaqah, to give some more in charity? But they won't be able to, because it will be over. But Dr. Imran and Ijaz, is there a better answer than I've given, or a more correct way of looking at it? Alhamdulillah. So Brother Karl, now we have to basically... Yeah, angels don't have free will. Jordan is quite right.
Yeah, I do know that, and that's the only reason it was kind of going around my head.
So, Karl, Bismillah, couple of lines of Qur'an, inshallah, no pressure.
Nice one.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Just trying to think of... I always hate being put on the spot, to be fair.
That's why I did it.
So Al-Imran, I'm starting to learn that a little bit.
You don't have to do more than 2 or 3 verses. Don't worry. We don't want to have the Qur'an. Don't worry.
Verses, lines maybe.
Inshallah.
So, Alif Lam Mim. Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. 1 second.
La ta'khudhuhu.
No. نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق المصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة إنجيل.
Okay, sorry, Karl.
I'm trying to learn. I'm sorry.
You should have gone for a shorter one, but that was...
I don't want to go for a lot. Yeah, I don't want to go for what you do.
That was still, mashallah, beautiful. I made a lot of comments of everyone, mashallah, commenting on how beautiful that was, and I did actually enjoy that very, very much as well.
I appreciate you.
Next time I will give you a bit of notice so you can actually plan it a bit better. And my apologies, but mashallah, look, we're getting loads of comments of how, alhamdulillah, people are very, very pleased.
But yeah, and I appreciate the help with the Dawah and whatnot, and I've got like a couple of people I'm going to start with that a couple of people have got me involved with. So
alhamdulillah. Karl, what you can do also is, if you want any mashallah help with the brothers here, obviously you're on our messages and things, just message us, and we can maybe join you.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so that way we can inshallah help you as well.
Yeah, inshallah.
Karl, jazakallah khair for coming on. Always lovely to see you. And
nice to speak to you guys.
Throw that sweatshirt away. I think it looks
nice.
No,
I won't.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh yeah. Walaikum salam.
Mashallah. Really naturally talented with the voice, mashallah.
Yeah, he sent me some recordings and I keep listening to them because he's mashallah beautiful the way he recites it. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so we've got quite a few of you guys. Please leave your cameras on so we can get you on. Guys, if your camera's not on, I'm going to just jump to somebody whose camera is on, even if they've come last, because it just saves us time and energy to keep doing that. Brother Sarmad, we're going to get you on next, inshallah. Just you don't need to wave because we know you, alhamdulillah, so you can come on next, inshallah. Brother Sarmad, okay. Brother Sarmad, jazakallah khair for coming on.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I hope this time it's not. I don't have any technical problems.
It's a lot clearer this time.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So yeah, basically, I would like to thank you again for all the great work you always do, guys. And I just wanted to touch just with a couple of ayahs from verses from Surah An-Nisa about the brother Stormfire's question about Qadr. Now, I appreciate, of course, Hadith Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that not to engage in deep discussions about these, but it's basically these verses. When I was trying to memorize the entire surah, it actually took me an entire year with Surah An-Nisa. since they on the outer surface they tackle both Qadr, but they seem to be conflicting. Now, this is from the outer, like when you read the text. Basically, the first verse says that whenever something good touches them or involves them, they would say it's coming from Allah. And whenever something bad comes to them, they would accuse you of being the reason. I'm just trying to summarize the meaning in English. But say, O Muhammad, that both come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think this is Surah An-Nisa, I think I tried to get the number there. Yes, 79. This is 78 first. And then
is it when
79.
something good befalls them, they claim it for themselves, and when something bad happens, they blame Allah? Is that correct? Am I wrong on that? Or is that different?
No, it's actually it's when something bad befalls them. If something good befalls them, they would say it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay.
And when something bad befalls them, they would or touches them, they would say it's because of the Prophet.
Sallallahu Alaihi
Wasallam. So say, O Muhammad, both come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And why do these people have, they don't use their brains to contemplate? And then the next surah, the next verse directly says, know that whatever good or bad, whatever good that comes is from Allah, and whatever bad that comes is from yourself. So I tried to reconcile the two verses, and I looked in tafsirs, and I had to go to Arabic language again to understand what the meaning was. And it's very simple. I mean, if it's exactly the way you brothers described it. I don't need to go into more details. I just wanted to substantiate with more verses that are directly in both, in both what seems to be conflicting ideas, but it's actually not. I mean, it's basically everything is decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you make the choices, good or bad, and then you get the result.
Brother Samad.
And the second thing I wanted to touch on is from history. I hope that Brother Ajaz probably would appreciate it since it's his specialty. But basically, it's about the question or the discussion that our brother had, Lonewolf, and it's about many incidents actually in Islamic history, the early history, like what we say, Sadr al-Islam. It's basically when the Islam started, and then it started to spread in Arabia. We have a lot of treaties because most of the Jazeera or the Arab Peninsula, northern to Hijaz, most of these people were actually Christian, including Iraq and Syria, of course, or the Levantine, the largest Levantine, the largest Syria or Sham. And a lot of treaties were made between the Sahaba, radwanullah alayhim. For example, Khalid ibn Walid, when he made the treaty with Ahl al-Hira, with the people of Hira, for example, which was the Christian capital in Iraq. And then we have the treaty with Hams, between Abu Ubaidah Amr ibn al-Jarrah, radiyallahu anhu, and the people of Hams. And the interesting thing about that incident is that when Abu Ubaidah was overpowered by the Romans, he actually retreated from Homs, and then he paid back the jizya to the people of Homs. And this is well documented in Tarikh al-Tabari, in Tarikh ibn Kathir, and even Siyarat ibn Ishaq. And the people of Homs actually rebelled against the Romans because of his deed, because they didn't even expect that. It was so noble in their eyes. Like, they compared what the Muslims did to what the Romans did before them, and then they said, well, it's not just generosity, it's more than that. So they rebelled against the Romans, because when the Muslims retreated to northern Hijaz, because they were overmanned or overpowered by the Roman Empire, and they only had about 10,000 or so, an army of 10,000 or less. I think it was 4,000, and the Romans came in with more than 120,000. And they had another army in Iraq, which was already engaged in the Battle of Qadisiyah against the Persians, 35 or 34,000 to 120,000. So Muslims were just, in logical terms, they were doomed for failure. But Allah as the best planner, of course. So, I mean, all these treaties in the darkest hour of the Islamic Empire, and they still follow the Quran. They don't follow logic. They don't follow, what their own reasoning would tell them to do. They follow Quran. They follow Sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You paid the jizya for us to defend you. We can't defend you anymore. We're sorry, but we're still on the same treaty. Whenever you would like to call for our help again, we will be there. And that's what made a lot of people accept Islam. It wasn't because this is a very naive idea, unfortunately, that Muslims came in with the sword and they compelled people to come into Islam. Well, why are there still Christians? About 10 million Christians in the Arab Peninsula. Why are still there? One of the oldest societies, or some of the oldest societies, Christian societies in the entire world, you could find still in Iraq, Assyrians, Akkadians, and Chaldeans, and you find the same people claim to be Assyrians in Syria, for example. They're one of the oldest, or some of the oldest societies. Brother
Sarmad, Jazakallah khair. I'm sorry I'm cutting you. It's just that because we've got about 6-7 people waiting. It's okay. It's okay. MashaAllah, I'm glad for the insight. Jazakallah khair. It was helpful, but it's just that because this stream is generally quite popular and we've got everybody trying to clamber on and they want to get on. And I'd like to get through the list. Jazakallah khair, brother, for coming.
I appreciate it.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah, that brother is always lovely. We met him at Speaker's Corner last time we were there. MashaAllah, he's a lovely brother, MashaAllah. Khalil, we're going to get your next. Just give me a quick thumbs up, inshallah.
Just one sec. I think a brother was there. Let's see if we can give him the chance. It was Brother Nas. I think Nas, if you're there, now is the time to put on your camera.
Brother Nas, put your camera on quickly.
He's been here for
quite a while. He's been here for quite a long time, but I keep telling people just leave your camera on. I mean, we
need to see your face, Nas.
Nas, you need to put your camera on. Otherwise, I want to get somebody else on.
Go ahead once. Go ahead. Right, next guest.
No, okay. Khalil, just give me a thumbs up. Khalil, give me a thumbs up. Okay, we're going to get you on next, brother. You can turn your camera off or you can leave it on, whatever you are comfortable with, inshallah. Okay. Brother Khalil, welcome to the stream.
Assalamu alaikum. I just talked to Brother Ijaz on the private. I really just wanted to say hi. I'm your brother from Tunisia. I'm actually I just came to France to work as a software engineer. Okay. And this is one of the sorry for my English, but this is one of the one of the steps to my goal to actually come to England and meet you and maybe join you, hopefully in the future, inshallah. You have no idea how much I really wanted to reach out to you. I've been watching you guys' videos, Brother Imran, Brother Abbas, Brother Ijaz. I've seen a couple of your videos, but it's been a while since maybe I'm out of touch, but it's been a while since I've seen your videos. But you have no idea how much I love you in Allah, and how your work has inspired me personally to not only increase my knowledge for my own sake in my religion first, but to actually seek more knowledge to be able to well, I mean, I come from Tunisia, and maybe some brothers here know it's more of going in the way of secular rather than more as a Muslim community. Even the community is straying further and further from Allah, and so even
it's a color but you got to get it quick because.
I'm just you're right. I mean, I just joined to say hi.
Brother, you know what it is? What makes us happy when people say this is not that astaghfirullah, we're great or we've done a great job, because that's not the case. That's really not the case. Alhamdulillah, what's very nice is that and what makes us really happy is that alhamdulillah, Allah used us to perhaps do some small deed, some small act, which mashallah made a big difference for somebody. So alhamdulillah, this gives us a lot of pleasure, and we hope inshallah that Allah keeps us sincere, makes us sincere if we're not, and then inshallah hopefully helps us to do even more in the future to do that. But jazakallah khair, Brother Khalil, for your coming, and forget France, you need to come to the UK and get a job here so we can meet you regularly, inshallah.
If I could just say just one thing,
No problem.
The last video where the Christian guy who was obsessed with you, but
Aaron.
I couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
I seriously couldn't finish it. And if I could recite 2 verses, I know that I might take some time, but just 2 verses. I love
Inshallah, go ahead. You're smiling so much, I can't say no to you. Just and if you say I'm going to recite Quran, I can't say no. Don't recite Quran. So okay, Bismillah.
I hope my voice is not horrible. So yeah, here you go.
Inshallah.
والله يريد أن يتوب عليكم ويريد الذين يتبعون الشهوات أن تميلوا ميلا عظيما يريد الله أن يخفف عنكم وخلق الإنسان ضعيفا. These just 2 verses that really inspired me lately, so I wanted to share them with you.
Jazakallah khair, brother.
I love you so much, brothers. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Love you for the sake of Allah as well.
Ameen.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, so who's got their camera on? Let's have a quick look. We've got brother. I can't read your name because it's all in Greek. I think it's Greek, or is that some other language?
Ραικος Helenas. He's just saying he's Greek.
Okay. Can you give me a thumbs up if that's okay? Lovely. We can get you on next, brother. You can leave your camera on or turn it off, whatever you're comfortable with. Welcome to the stream.
Thank you for putting me on. I'm not a Muslim, but I just want to have a question. I've asked some Muslims here, but they really don't give me an answer. They say we don't know. Can I ask the question, please?
To be honest, this is not the stream, but I leave it up to Dr. Imran, who's the big boss here, to decide. But this is.
I leave it up to him too.
Yeah, Dr. Imran, please. You know what? You've asked so nicely. If you can ask a quick question, we'll only get Dr. Imran to answer it concisely. Go ahead, ask your question.
Yes. Are there any theophanies in Islam? I'm an Orthodox Christian. In my faith, the base of our faith is the theophanies of God. Can we see that in Islam? No, there are no theophanies in Islam.
No theophanies. However, we do believe that when we enter paradise or heaven, one of the rewards for the true believers is that they will have sight of God. Right? So
I'm not talking about the after. Yes, I understand, but I was not talking about the afterlife. I was talking about this life here.
On earth, yeah, on earth.
You mean no theophanies? Okay.
Yeah, no. The answer is no.
Okay.
Brother, do join us on do join us on the non-Muslim streams. We'll be more than happy to have you back again, and we'd love to have a conversation. We'd love to have a conversation with you further on this. If you
nice talking to you guys. See you. Bye bye. It's night here.
Thank you. Bye.
I'm surprised that no Muslim was able to answer that question.
Yeah,
which is subhanallah. Was alhamdulillah. But jazakallah khair, because I answered it so concisely, I didn't even open my mouth, mashallah.
I know. I said Dr. Ryan, but Ijaz, mashallah, was off the mark, and I like that, alhamdulillah, because it was quick.
I cheated on that one. But the question is, how many Muslims would know the word theophany?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, Dr. Imran probably would. Actually, to be fair, I didn't know what he was talking about. So what does that mean? Why didn't you explain it to all of us, including me?
No, that's cheating. I know you know what it means because
I don't know. I don't know what it means.
An appearance of God, not in an incarnation, but like in a vision or in a form, but not physical.
Okay, so I've learned something. Alhamdulillah. Muzafar, we're going to get you on next. Can you just give me a quick wave?
By the way, I just want to say I like the comment that says I'm Dr. Imran. We're not one and the same.
Muzafar, just give me a quick wave. Lovely. We're going to get you on next, brother. You can leave your camera on or you can turn it off. Muzafar is actually one of the last people who've joined the stream. There's about 7 or 8 of you who are trying to join. I'm not going to let you on because you don't have your camera on. I've asked you so many times. Muzafar, welcome to the stream, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. How y'all doing?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I am calling from United States. And I had a question in regards to I've been trying to go study and practice the religion as much as I can now. But one of the things it's actually doing is taking me away from this cultural stuff that people do and my people do. For example, weddings, birthdays, and for example, I had my birthday about a month ago, and I stayed away, and it kind of created this tension in the family between brother, sister, and parents. And I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but what I'm doing is calmly try to tell them, hey, I don't want to do it anymore. Or the weddings, I don't want to participate in weddings where there is music, dancing, and stuff like that. How should I approach it? Because I think that the more I'm doing this, it's kind of pushing me away from people. And
it's a very, very quick, good question. It's not really so much of a doubt, but rather, you know, how to live a life perhaps more in line with you know, Islamic teachings. I would say, brother Muzafar, and of course the brothers may wish to advise differently, but I would say ask your local mufti, because it may be that certain things might still be allowed within reason, whereas others might not be allowed. So yes, of course, the consensus is that music is something that is not allowed and that we should not be listening to music. This is the consensus. We have to accept that. There might be some opinions on one side and some opinions on the other side, but the general consensus is that we shouldn't indulge in music. This pretty much is most music, apart from the drum or some singing at a wedding or whatever it might be, right? But the thing is, you might want to ask your specific case and exactly what is going on and whether you would be allowed to do that or not do that. Because there are questions, for example, people say, well, if I enter a supermarket and in the supermarket there's music playing, then I should not enter the supermarket. But the reality is that the rulings for those type of things are actually different. It's whether you're enjoying it and taking part in the music, and if something is in the background, then you're not responsible. So there are, and I'm not saying that is a fatwa, by the way, or this applies to everything. I'm not saying that either. So please don't take it out of context. I'm just saying specifically for this, I've heard this, but that does not mean to say that applies to everything else. But I would say ask this question to somebody, even like, for example, a birthday.
Yep.
You know, if your family just got together and they bought you a present, and they said well done, or they bought you a cake or something, would that constitute a birthday? Or now if there was alcohol there and there's music there and there's all of these other things there, it would be completely different, and that might be completely haram, might not be allowed. You see what I mean? So there are areas where potentially it might not be deemed as haram or a major sin, and in that case it might be deemed as something that you shouldn't break up the family, and you shouldn't be perhaps too strict on everything.
Yep.
But then again, the mufti might tell you, the scholar might tell you that actually if all of these things are happening, then you shouldn't be part of it. So I think that's how I would perhaps answer that. But Dr. Imran and Ijaz, if you think that it should be answered differently, please do.
How long have you been a Muslim, brother Muzafar?
Well, I was born in Russia. We moved out to Houston, Texas around 2005. I'm Turkish myself, but we were. I'm gonna be honest. We were never into deen. I didn't know much about it until 2 years ago, when I read the Quran and I started to do more research. That's I would say 2 years, but I was a Muslim before that as a non-practicing Muslim.
Okay, I just want to understand a little bit about your background. So I think the thing to do is, it's very hard to change families, particularly when you're a younger member of the family and there are lots of elders around who are used to doing things in a certain way. And may Allah increase you and bless you and keep you firm in your faith and everything that you're doing, because you are definitely trying to do the best that you can. It's very important to be, because your family also has rights over you to a large extent, and you have to be respectful and maintain your relations with them. But it is nuanced. So it's very important, as Brother Abbas said, that you seek specific advice in your local area. But there's the rigidity that sometimes, when we newly start practicing, we are very we want everything to be, we want to do everything right. Everything's black and white, and we want it to, this is right and this is wrong. But there's a lot of nuances within Islam, and within Islam, there's a lot of, depending on your personal situation, the scenario, you can be given allowances, Brother Abbas said. So definitely speak to those around you. For example, we had a brother whose family, he was a revert from a family with Christian heritage, and he was asked he was asked to attend a family gathering in which they were going to serve some Christmas meal, etc. And he knew that if he didn't attend, it would cause a big problem within the family. There would be problems, there would be arguments, and maybe even the relationship would be significantly damaged. So he spoke to a scholar who, in that scenario, for him specifically, gave him an ability to meet with his family, but within a certain bounds, and taught him how to navigate that, but based upon him. So the point of telling you all this is that it's not black and white. Speak to someone. If you have trouble, email us and we'll find someone who you can contact, and they can guide you through this, because you're balancing different things, and they're all Islamic: the rights of your family over you, and then adhering to some rulings that we're aware of in terms of how to live your life, and you're trying to balance these things, and they will maybe help you, guide you through that. So Jazakallah khair for your question, and I wish you
I have one other question.
Sure.
I just want to, Muzafar, I just want to ask Dr. Ijaz if he'd like to add anything to that, or are you happy with those answers? Alhamdulillah. Please, Muzafar. Muzafar, we've actually allowed you to ask the question, but in reality, I just want to remind people backstage that really this is an issue mainly for doubts in Islam, or doubts that have crept in, or perhaps doubts that have been presented to you, just to try to keep to the stream, because if there are people in the backstage who want to actually specifically ask those questions, and we end up clogging the stream up. And I don't mean that in a derogatory manner, but you know what I mean. Yep. And then it might be difficult. But Muzafar, please do ask your second question quickly, and we'll see if we can.
I am myself an accountant. I have a small practice here, and as you know, in America, Riba is it's nearly impossible to avoid it. I don't have Riba in my business, but my clients themselves, they do have credit cards. They do consume Riba and stuff like that, and they come to me and they ask me for bookkeeping help. If I onboard them, am I in that area of?
Brother, I would also, for that question as well, I would ask a local scholar.
Yep.
However, generally speaking, you're not responsible or held accountable for others who do riba.
Okay.
So for example, if I go to a supermarket, in the supermarket, they also sell alcohol.
Yep.
Some of their earnings are coming from alcohol.
Yeah.
And from some of those earnings that are coming from alcohol and riba, they might be buying food, which they are also selling in the supermarket. Do you see my point?
Yep.
So what I'm trying to say to you is that we've got to be, again, careful where we don't apply such a level of rigidity and scrutiny and difficulty where it literally becomes difficult to live. Is that the adhan going off in Muzafar? Is that your adhan?
Yes, it's Asr time for us.
We'll just mute while that's going on, because it's not respectful to be speaking when the adhan's going on. But so I would say local. I'll speak to a local mufti again. My personal inclination is that I think, and of course this is not a fatwa, I don't want to fall into that. But if you're not directly dealing in something, and it's not in your control, I can't see how that would be something that you would be somehow responsible for. But I don't know, brothers, is that the correct answer, would you say, Ijaz?
Yeah, so two things quickly. There's a general rule you can follow if you can't currently access a scholar. The first is, if the company or the person that you're accounting for, if 51% or more of their transactions are based on interest or deal in impermissible things, then you want to avoid it completely. Okay. The second thing is, what they say is, if it's not 51% or more, but you are responsible for helping them decide whether to do transactions with interest or not, then that also becomes impermissible because you're a deciding factor in it. You're telling them, yes, use your credit card on this transaction. Yes, use interest here, use interest there. Then that becomes impermissible. Those are the two general rules you can use.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Muzafar, Jazakallah khair for coming on. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Okay, brother Muhammad, you have been on before. I can see your fan.
Hold up. You got to hold up there. We had someone just before, Sister Sabreen.
Okay.
Sister Sabreen, if you're there,
Okay.
can you give us a thumbs up?
Yes.
We need to just a little bit more down just to see the face.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Yes,
that's fine. You can turn
we
off
can
your
get
camera.
Sister Sabreen on next.
Sorry about that, brother, Uncle
No,
Abbas.
no, that's quite right. I didn't realize that she'd been authenticated. Sister Sabreen, welcome to the stream.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can you hear me well? That's my
We
first
can.
question. Okay.
We can.
I have a quick question about marriage between cousins. So today I actually heard about a supposed hadith, that mentions it's recommended that it's recommended or even better to marry cousins. And since they're from the same family, and the person who said this was an Indian Muslim woman that I know.
Did she give you the reference for the hadith? Because
I was going to say that was just a statement. She couldn't name any hadith or any resource.
Yeah.
So I tried to do some research, and so I couldn't find anything. And I was just curious if you know anything about this kind of hadith.
I've never heard that. It does.
I did a quick search, and I don't seem able to find a single hadith on that which is authentic that encourages it or says it's preferable.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't find anything myself neither, so I just found that weird and just wanted to ask you about this.
No problem, sister. Jazakallah khair for coming on.
Thank you so much. That's all.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, Dr. Imran, you probably didn't want to add anything to that, did you? Mohammadi, just give us a quick wave.
All I got to say is I got excellent research skills, and it took me all of 30 seconds
Alhamdulillah.
to verify and validate that.
Brother Mohammadi, we're going to get you on next. You can turn your camera off.
We might have skipped a person in Diallo.
But Diallo hasn't got his camera on. I said,
Diallo, can you put it on really quickly? Going once? Because Uncle Abbas has to go to bed. Going twice?
No, it's not about going to bed. It's about obviously trying to get everybody on, you see.
They all can't have it on all the time. All right, let's go to
I don't
Muhammad,
sleep till 4 or 5 in the morning normally, so because I'm
What are you
working
doing that
nights.
late? What are you doing up that late? You
Working
don't respond to
nights.
my text messages after
Nights.
midnight.
Well, I work, Ijaz. I have to earn money. I have to pay bills. Mohammadi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You look like a young version of Muhammad Salah. Do you play football, Mohammadi? Do you play football?
Here and there, not anymore now, inshallah. No, I just work now.
Muhammad Salah, you look like a young version of Muhammad Salah. You need to start playing football and earn millions, inshallah.
No, brother, I just came on to ask a few questions, actually.
You don't like my jokes now. You don't like my jokes. So what's going on?
No, I want to get down to business.
MashaAllah, I like that. I like that.
Please go ahead, brother Mohammadi.
So I've been studying comparative religion for almost 8 years. I've been listening to Ahmadi, Taj, Jibreel AS.
Brother, you look too young. What did you start when you were 6 years old?
I'm actually 30 years old. I'm not that young. I'm 30 years of age.
Subhanallah.
Yes,
What is your secret, brother? You got to tell us.
You just gotta keep fit. You have to keep your fitness. To keep playing football.
I thought you were literally calling me from high school. This is your holidays from high school.
I'm actually calling from Ireland.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Okay, brother. Please go ahead. Enough jokes. My jokes are getting too plentiful.
No, you're fine. So I've been actually studying religion for over 8 years. Like, I know comparative religion very well. I've studied Bible, Qur'an, Hadith, and the Torah as well. Lately, I came across two brothers who memorized the Qur'an, they memorized the Bible, they know it very well. I haven't been able to push them over the line where they can be convinced that Jesus is not the son of God, sorry. Okay. Now they have
You're almost messed up, let me tell you right now.
Anyway, so the thing is, now we've been debating about crucifixion, about the historic of the Bible, the history of the Quran, and so many other topics. I even contacted Brother Abbas and Brother Imran on Instagram. Some of those debates as well. Actually, I got a reply from Brother Abbas, but he wasn't himself. He was somebody, one of the admins, maybe. And lately, they have dreamt the Prophet over like almost a year now. They've been dreaming the Prophet almost every night. You know, the Prophet teaching them the Quran, the Sunnah, and so many things. You know. They have tried to come on, but they're very busy. They're doctors. They haven't got a time to actually come on and discuss these issues with you guys. So I've been trying to get an appointment with you guys so they can come on and discuss this in more details. If you guys can give me a timing when they can come on, and inshallah we can organize another meeting and you guys can discuss on moving further. They're very well known. They have studied. They've done their masters in Bible. They have memorized the Quran. They have been to Mecca 5, 6, 7 times now. They've done their Umrah. So they're very close, but it's just, I don't know what's missing. You know what I mean?
I don't understand what you're saying, brother. They are Muslim. They're doing Umrah, then they're Muslims already.
They're Catholics. They're Catholics.
So how can they do Umrah?
They just do it. They believe. They don't say they accept the Prophet is a prophet, right? But they still haven't pushed over the line that let go Jesus as being the son of what they call the son of God.
Mohammadi, are you saying that they've already gone to Umrah?
They have.
And they've done Umrah
5 or 6 times. Yes, they have. They have.
And
yeah.
And they're not Muslims.
They're not Muslims, no.
They've done more Umrah than I have.
So I'm serious. Like, I just don't know what is the missing puzzle. I cannot figure out. Like, we've been debating for 5, 6 months now, back and forth. I even sent something to the Dr. Imran there. I've sent some of the stuff there as well.
So Instagram, I hardly check my Instagram, but what I would suggest
is
it
noticed,
takes many years to become a Hafiz. So if this is actually, I mean, this sounds incredible. I'm having to tell you,
they actually have memorized the Bible, the Quran as well, very well. Like they can, and even Hadith as well.
I've never met anyone who's memorized the Bible because never, not even like
page. Memorize meaning by like they actually know it. They know it by heart. Like they can like if you reference something, they know where it is and where they know it very well. Like they're very well knowledgeable in the Bible.
Level, and then to be going on Umrah when you don't believe, when you haven't taken your Shahada. I mean, this is just, it sounds unbelievable. But what
are they from non-Muslim families?
So their family is actually mixed. They're Catholics and Muslim at the same time. So
the reason I'm asking is because sorry, there might be a delay, but the reason I'm asking is the credibility here is a bit tough for us to accept, because to get an Umrah visa, you need to either show that you have an Islamic background, or if you're from a non-Muslim family, that you have a Shahada certificate or something like this.
I understand, but they are mixed family. They actually, some of them are Muslim, some of them are Catholic. They're actually, some of them are Lebanese and some of them are Singaporean and some of them are Catholic.
Do they have Muslim names or something? Because that might just...
Yes, they do.
So that might be the reason why the...
I think, so rather than us trying to work out how they did the Umrahs and memorize the Quran, and why don't you, if our email address is here, this is actually something that is monitored and we'll be able to respond to you. If you email us, brother, and what we can do is we can arrange a time off camera. We don't mind how they want to do this. And then we can have a with them, inshallah, and then we can try and see what the situation is and we can try and help, inshallah.
Inshallah. I'm going to let them know.
Yes,
to email you guys, and they can organize a meeting with you guys whenever off camera or when, and they can discuss further on with you guys, inshallah.
No problem.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Brother Mohammadi, that is one of the most remarkable stories I've heard on our channel.
It is very shocking to me as well, brother, because what's shocking to me, like they have dreamt a lot of things about the Prophet, right? Even one of their little sister or niece, actually, she's only about 3 or 4 years of age. She even dreamt the Prophet is a friend of Jesus, and she went and told him as well. So I'm like, there's so many different signs coming to you guys, and you're still not going over saying this has to be the truth. You know what I mean? So it's not only one person actually dreaming the Prophet, multiple person in the family has dreamt the Prophet. Some of them even actually dreamt the Shahada. Some of them dreamt the Prophet actually teaching them to recite the Quran, the Sunnah, different surahs in the Quran, and so on, you know.
Okay, Jazakallah, brother Mohammed. You really appreciate that. So get them to email us, and then we'll go
Inshallah.
from there. Inshallah. Jazakallah.
Salam alaikum. Inshallah. Thank you very much. Salam alaikum.
Okay, so now we've got one of our guests that comes on regularly. He's disappeared. Oh, that's a shame. It was Nazam. I wanted to get Nazam on to ask him what doubt he had.
I think he disconnected.
Yeah, I think he realized he's not supposed to be on, I think, perhaps. Why would you want to do 7 Umrahs if you don't believe it? Doesn't add up at all, to be honest. To be honest, some people, to be fair, some people do accept a lot of the notions, like this is the house of Abraham, and they do actually accept a lot of that. And they some of them just accept that this is a holy place. They accept that, but they haven't quite finalized their beliefs to a level whereby they end up. So it is possible. You'll be surprised. It is possible. And I think, Imran, you did point out that in the Old Testament, in Hebrew writings, we do find references being made to a square building that the Jews circumnavigated 7 times, just like we do with the Kaaba circumnavigating 7 times. And so there's similarities. And so there are people who are aware of this. And actually I think the Jews they have a square, they wear a square box on their arm, and they have 7, they wind the string or the band 7 times around their arm, because that house apparently has been lost. And so some of them do believe. And in fact, there is a Jewish writer, I know it's probably a very fringe opinion, but he does believe that the Kaaba actually is this place, and he accepts that the Hajj and the Umrah are actually rituals that the Jews have also done. And I think, if I remember rightly, he was wanting them to be able to do it there again. But anyway, I think that's sort of my take on it. So there are people who are, I suppose, in a state of some confusion, really, where they accept some parts, they don't accept all parts. But 7 times is incredible, though, I must admit that. Yeah. Brothers, do you want to add anything to that at all?
Brother Ijaz, any thoughts?
You're just a bit flabbergasted, Ijaz.
Yeah. I think it was a great stream. Hint.
What?
So,
what does that mean?
So just to conclude, Jazakallah everyone for participating. Questions are really appreciated. Anyone who wants to contact us, then please do so. Really want to just say Jazakallah to all the mods for all of your hard work, and the brothers in the background who
this was a brother in the background who did want to join.
We've got Diallo back again. Diallo, can you give me a quick wave? Lovely.
Sorry,
Diallo,
guys.
sorry,
He was here
Imran.
previously.
No, please, you continue. I know that.
Yeah, Diallo, we're going to get you on next. Brother Diallo, welcome to the stream.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I don't know if you remember me, but I was here maybe like a couple months ago. I was asking about how to study the hadith and how, advices, and I got some really good advices from you, and I've started, mashallah. So yeah, it's a long process, but hopefully I can increase my knowledge slowly, inshallah. So yeah, so I ask that you add me into du'as and your prayers for that, because it's very difficult mixing it, like Western education and and studying, Islam. It's a lot, but alhamdulillah, I'm trying as much as I can. Anyway, my question is with regards to the if you have any references with regards to where it is described or explained either in the Qur'an or anywhere in any of the hadiths about the reason why we pray the Dhuhr and the Asr prayers in silence. And the reason I'm asking this is, again, it's not from myself, but I am working with a friend of mine who is, mashallah, slowly coming to the fold of Islam. There's a lot of things that we are on the same page with in terms of the concept of God. He's from a Catholic background. We have debunked the idea that Isa alayhi salam can be considered God or in any form. So we've gone past that stage. Now it's about accepting Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a prophet and and a messenger of Allah, and all the teachings that he came with. So that's where we are now, and obviously he has a lot of questions in terms of that. And one of the questions he's been asking me is about this. It's about the prayers. I think he has accepted the Quran as a revelation from Allah, and I think he actually is very impressed. He's been reading it, so almost all his questions are coming across as from the Hadith teachings, and that's also where I'm lacking, which is why I'm hoping that you can direct me somewhere or someone. It could be online where it's explained, or in the books. I'm prepared to invest as much as I can to get that education. But just briefly speaking, in terms of where that is explained, or the reasons behind that.
Okay, I don't know if Dr. Imran, do you want to start with that? Just advise the brother.
Jazakallah khair. So it's interesting because it's really a specific question for someone who's trying to become Muslim.
I think he's just asking so many random questions. Probably like been getting it from other people, and so I cannot.
That's what I mean. This is like really non-random. This question.
Yeah.
It's a specific question about why the salah is silent for some. So
I think it's a general question. Actually, he was asking about the prayers in general. It was a very, very general prayer, and then the more I explained to him the different prayers that we do, and the difference between prayer, salah, and dua, and all that kind of stuff, then he was asking the specific question, which I was completely, I had nothing to say on. And I didn't want to tell him false information, so I told him I will go and look this up and ask the right people, and I'll come back. So yeah, there are other questions that he asked leading up to this that I was able to clarify. And then, so this was like the last one, and this was last night. So it's still kind of, relatively new. But usually I don't ask him why you're asking this, because he seems very curious. So I just try to.
So really, the answer to the question is the Sunnah. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Pray as you see me praying," and this is recorded in the Hadith. And then we have other recordings in places like Bukhari of people asking if the Prophet, peace be upon him, recited in Asr and Dhuhr, and the answer to that being given yes, and they asked, how did you know? And they said, from the movement of his beard. And from this is understood that it wasn't, because obviously if you can hear the recitation, the question is irrelevant. You understand, yeah?
Yeah.
So the fact that they were saying that the reason we know that the Dhuhr and Asr are silent is because we could see the movement of the beard, which indicated the recitation was happening. So when we recite silently, we should be moving some part of our mouth, because it's an action. The salah is an action. It's not just in your heart. So there are hadith that demonstrate this. So they're from Bukhari. You can look them up. We can send you the links if you want to send us an email. We're happy to do that, inshallah. So hopefully that will help. Is that okay? Is that okay for you, brother, at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I will probably shoot you an email just to get those links.
Yeah, sure.
The references, just not just for just for the record, but also to increase our knowledge as well.
Yeah, of course, inshallah.
This was my main idea, pushing to him, but I didn't just want to say because this is how Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed. So I wanted to kind of actually direct him. Was like, also these are the background behind that.
Yes.
Yeah, I will definitely shoot you an email.
And we'll find those hadith for you. I know that they're in Bukhari. I think some are Muslim as well. Because I read the Prophet's pair described, we list those hadiths. So I remember reading them in the past, and we'll send them to you, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. MashaAllah, the hadith are, of course, for us a huge guide. Of course, those who reject it, they just make it up as they go along. I don't want to open up that kind of worm. So, Jazakallah khair, brother Diallo, for coming on. So we had brother Mohammadi just make a comment in the back that apparently they also speak Arabic, he was saying, or something. Or did I just
and English and Hebrew fluently, and other languages.
Could I just make a quick comment on the last question as well? I know we're short on time.
Please.
But just quickly, not everything in the deen is aqli, meaning that there needs to be a reason that we are aware of to understand the full scope of something. Yes, we know the Prophet ﷺ prayed in this way, and we know that every salah must have al-Fatiha in it, right, at a minimum. And we know that when you do the ruku or you go into the sujood, what you must do and say. And so we don't make up any part of the salah. It's not random. We don't guess about it.
Yeah.
And in fact, in some madhab, you do have to recite for yourself when you are praying, even if the imam is silent or loud, to my knowledge. Even if he is, you read it for yourself. So for me as a Muslim, this suffices. Other than this, brothers, there were 2 questions in the back chat that were present. Could I just read them one by one quickly and we get it done? One is by Brother Vito. He says, our Prophet ﷺ told us to stop injustice with our hands, our mouths, if we dislike it in our hearts, etc. Does this mean if Muslims are being killed, there is cultural assimilation, etc.? I don't know how they're similar, by the way. That we as Muslims must try to do as Rasulullah ﷺ commanded us to do? And if so, why isn't any Muslim talking about the rights of my Muslim brothers in my country? Jazakallah. Who wants to take that one?
I didn't understand it, to be honest with you. If you understand it?
Yeah, I understand. Basically, he's asking if the Prophet, peace be upon him, commanded us to stop injustice with our hands, if not with our mouths, if not with our hands, etc. Not in that order, don't get me wrong. Or at least hate it in your hearts. Why don't we find Muslims speaking about this? Muslims do speak about this. This is how we know about the hadith. Each situation requires a certain level of each situation requires its own treatment. Not all situations are the same, and we must always operate under the rule of law with the guidance of the ulama. So if it's specific to your country, brother, I would suggest that you ask an alim who can help you with that question in a more specific sense. May I read the next question, brother?
Please go ahead.
Sorry. Hold up, if I can find it. Basically, the brother is saying he's an Arab Muslim, and he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an made a challenge that if a jinn or a human can even make an ayah of the Qur'an, let them come forward and do so. He recognizes that the hadith about the satanic verses are weak, right? And he's asking the question, even if they are weak, why is it that some of the companion, let me get his words correct here. How did some of the Tabi'een and the Tabi'een, how did they come to believe the incident? So who wants to take that one?
I don't think they did believe the incident. There's no evidence that they did.
I agree. So there's, I'll respond to the brother in my own way, which is that the Quran in itself, there are hadith that mention that surah, when it was recited, the people prostrated. This is not to mean that the people prostrated when they heard that alleged satanic verse only, right? So some people confused the two, and they assumed that the people prostrated when they heard that alleged satanic verse. That is not the case, and I don't think there's any riwayah that mentions that.
And also, it's very important to remember, just because you might have 1 or 2 people who might report something or say that they reported it or that they believed it or whatever, that doesn't mean to say the challenge has been met, because it's produce a verse and then bring witnesses, your witnesses, our witnesses, to see if you've managed to do it. So when you produce the witnesses and they say, look at this, they say, look, this is not Quran. This doesn't even flow to the ayah before, the ayah afterwards. It's standing out as something clearly that's not part of this. So if there was any major confusion in relation to these verses or whatever, we would have had Qur'ans today with the verse in there, but we don't have this confusion. It was completely discarded.
I agree with you. He mentions that how was Iblis even able to produce something which sounds similar?
He wasn't, was he?
Maybe I can also just jot something on here. 1, he didn't. But 2, let's assume even if he did, that would not make it like the Quran. For something to be equal to the Quran, it must match it in all of its qualities. So a non-Muslim can recite anything with the tone and intonation and the rhythm of the Quran. Right? Some Christians have tried this with the Bible. but it does not produce the same effect. People are not drawn to it. They don't consider it authoritative. They don't consider it to be inspired, and they don't use it as a dalil, right? So it would not be similar in all senses. Therefore, it's not similar to the Quran.
So could I
But
just very briefly on this, because we're talking about this. So this was part of that presentation many years ago, specifically on this. So the claim is, and I just want to clarify, so there's issues with the claim internally as well as externally. So we'll talk about the both of them very briefly. So the claim is that Tabari mentions that that under satanic inspiration, 2 verses were added to Surah An-Najm, which is the 53rd chapter, and the verses are, these are the high-flying ones whose intercession is to be hoped for. The Prophet is alleged to have recited these in prayer. Pagans joined in, and the Muslims in Abyssinia heard about this in return. And then Gabriel informed the Prophet in the same evening. This is the claim, yeah. And the revelation was what, and their purpose was to tempt thee away from that which we had revealed unto thee, to substitute in us something quite different. Behold, they would certainly have made thee their friend, but had we not given thee strength, there was nearly, and it goes on to explain this. Now, this whole thing was brought about by a missionary called William Muir, and it's based on an issue. So there's an internal failure first. So the verse actually goes like this: so, have you seen Lat and Uzza and another, the third, Manat? And then this is the bit that's supposed to be inserted. These are the high-flying ones whose intercession is to be hoped for. What for you the male, and this the verse continues, what for you the male sex, and for him the female, behold, such would be indeed an unfair division. And then when the verse continues, so the first issue here is that the verse that we do find in the Quran, this section and this section, are actually admonition. It's warning and it's disproving of these claims. And then in the middle of it, you get some praise, which is supposed to be the satanic verses. So it doesn't fit the flow of the verses. The verse is talking about admonishing people for believing these things and attributing to God females when they want for themselves males, and talks about that these are nothing but names which you have devised for, and ye and your fathers, for which Allah has sent no authority. So Allah is specifically saying that these are made up things, are not real. And so it's an admonition, but in the middle of that, we're supposed to see some praise for these people. And so it doesn't fit the narrative. The flow of the verses doesn't. So praise and dispraise at the same time. Now,
Dr. Imran,
yeah.
To be clear, would that not produce a contradiction?
That would produce a contradiction, absolutely.
And what I think Allah says that nothing from him.
Yes.
If it was not from him, it would have a contradiction in it.
100%.
So,
100%.
yeah,
But beautiful.
Mashallah.
Now, Tabari, in the beginning of his book, he says something very interesting, and this is a translation of that. Hence, if I mention in this book a report about some men of the past which the reader or listener finds objectionable or worthy of censure because he can see no aspect of truth or any factual substance therein, let him know that this is not to be attributed to us, but to those who transmitted to us, and we have merely passed it on as it has been passed on to us. So what Tabari is saying here is he did not check anything, or just recorded the information that was flying around, and this is one of those things, excuse the pun. Now, what's the external failure of this? The external failure for this is, remember what was the issue? That Gabriel corrected this verse from chapter 17 was corrected in the same evening. The external failure is that that after the Muslims that migrated to Abyssinia, 8 years before the Hijrah to Medina. The admonition came, which is Surah 17, was revealed after they went to the Miraj 2 or 3 years before the Hijrah. So we have 8 years and 2 years. So the consolation verse was revealed in the first year of Hijrah. So what's the error? So the claim is that immediately Gabriel was told the Prophet, peace be upon him. But we find the verse coming, the telling verse coming 6 years later, and then the consolation verse coming 9 years later. So even the time frame of the revelation of the verses doesn't fit with the allegation made by the...
Ron, just explain that then. Basically what you're saying is that the correction in the timeline did not come immediately according to how it was revealed. It came 6 or 8 years later. Is that right?
So the claim made by this missionary was that it was the verses was recited and the pagans prostrated. The Muslims came back from Abyssinia, and when they heard this, and Gabriel informed Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, on the same evening. This is the claim that the Christians make. Now, when you look at the timeline, the supposed abrogation, the error, whenever that error occurred, and Gabriel was supposed to mention, imagine this now, Gabriel is, Islam is telling the Prophet, where you made an error. The abrogation is made 6 years later.
Subhanallah.
And then the consolation verse, which we mentioned in Surah 17, comes 9 years later. So the Surah Isra is the verse that was the abrogation, and then the consolation verse was revealed as for Surah Al-Hajj, that was revealed in 9 years later than that. So none of the timeline flows. So there's an internal error and an external error within this. So basically what this tells you is that this is fabrication. It doesn't fit at all, and we should just really treat it that way. So
I think one of the other things also to remind people is that the challenge is not about plagiarizing the existing Quran and rewording things to make it seem like the Quran. The Quran has its own unique genre. It has its own grammar. It has its own way of construction, which is unique to itself. So you can't then simply copy verses of the Quran and somehow reword them and say, look, I've met the challenge, because that's not the challenge actually. So that would be a misunderstanding. Now, has given a reference of the Muslim lantern, brother Muhammad Ali. He's recommended the miraculous language of the Quran, evidence of divine origins, by Bassam Sahi or Sai, which gives a detailed and unique explanation for how the Quran is so unique. Mashallah, it's recommended by brother Muhammad Ali, who I have a lot of respect for. And if you don't watch his channel, definitely the Muslim Lantern, I would recommend watching it, because I myself tune into it many times to learn from him. Mashallah, Allah has blessed him with a lot of knowledge. And if he's recommended that particular book, I would definitely look into buying it or getting hold of it, inshallah. I think with that, I think, mashallah, ready to end the stream. Any last words, brothers, before we go?
So just to finish off, so anything good is from Allah, and any errors and mistakes are from ourselves and shaitan. May Allah keep us sincere and forgive us for our shortcomings. So jazakallah khair to everyone for joining us, and please remember everyone in your du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.